Chapter 305. Oh! Lu Yi looked a little surprised, as if he hadn't expected that he wouldn't be able to kill this ghost cultivator with one strike. However, after seeing the old man's appearance clearly, he realized that this should be the so-called veteran Ninth Order. His reputation was well-deserved. Ordinary Ninth Order cultivators wouldn't be able to withstand his explosive strike. These veteran Ninth Order cultivators who had lived for many years still had some ability. For some reason, a strong spirit energy fluctuation came from behind the ghost cultivator, followed by a shining rope falling from the sky. It was Yi, who was hiding in the dark, who had cast a spirit binding chain on the old ghost cultivator. This technique wasn't taught to Yi by the sect master. When the sect master taught Yi, she hadn't been able to master such a profound technique. This was a technique that Yi had comprehended herself after watching the Immortal Essence Guards use in Immortal Essence City. She felt that this technique was very suitable for binding and capturing people. By the time the unprepared ghost cultivator realized something was wrong, it was already too late. Under the shining spirit binding chain, he was directly tied up. He struggled with all his strength, and his spirit energy surged wildly. To his horror, he found that the spirit binding chain was extremely sturdy. Although he could break free, it would take him some time. A stream of light pierced through his eyes and came out from the back of his head. The old ghost cultivator instantly became stiff. When Yi dispersed the technique, the thin body fell to the ground with a thud. "Let's go!" Lu Yi called out and collected the old ghost cultivator's storage bag. Hoop had jumped onto his shoulder and summoned his flight-type spirit artifact. A moment later, a stream of light shot into the sky, extremely conspicuous in the night. At the same time, several rays of light flew out from somewhere below, heading straight to intercept them. Obviously, they were the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators who were searching for Lu Yi nearby. "Beat him down!" Someone shouted. Before a cultivator changed to a heaven-tier cultivation method, they would not fight with others while flying. This was because they did not have enough control over their own spiritual power. It was very dangerous. Even if they were stronger than others, they could still be knocked down. If they fell from dozens of feet and could not slow down, then they could only wait for death. There were 4 Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators intercepting them. They had an absolute advantage in terms of numbers, but they still didn't dare to fight Lu Yi in midair. It was rumored that Lu Yi of the Blue Blood sect had a flying wing tattoo that allowed him to fly. Fighting him in midair was obviously unwise. As soon as that person's voice fell, streams of light from Imperial equipment shot towards them, arriving in front of them in the blink of an eye. Giant Jia, who was standing at the front, to fly. Lu Yeziz's spirit artifact. The artifact's flying to fly, like a butterfly's to fly. Not only were the Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators stunned by this scene, but even Lu Yi was somewhat surprised. Lu, SSSSSS, T was tutu, SSS. T test right, TS test, S's, S to catch. This, this. Lu Yi reached into his bag of holding and fished it out. 4 spirit tools flew out, each of which glowed with light as they were buffed by windwalking. Screams rang out. 2 Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators' bodies were immediately pierced by the artifacts. They fell to the ground headfirst. From the looks of it, there was a high chance they wouldn't survive. Although the remaining 2 were injured by this flying artifacts, they didn't fall and barely escaped. However, before they could breathe a sigh of relief, 4 more rays of light shot towards them. 2 more screams rang out. The 4 of them joined forces. If they were on the ground, Lu Yi might have to spend some effort to deal with them, but it wasn't so troublesome in midair. Without stopping, Giant Jia controlled his flying artifact to fly into the distance, leaving a dazzling streak of light in the night sky. Along the way, Giant Jia was occasionally intercepted by Myriad Demons Ridge cultivators who had received the news in advance. However, the situation this time was different from last time. Last time, he fled on Hoopa. Although his speed wasn't slow, it wasn't fast. He was besieged and cut a sorry figure. This time, Giant Jia was flying on his flying artifact, so his mobility was too high. In addition, Myriad Demons Ridge didn't dare to make a big deal out of it. lest it aroused Grand Heaven Alliance's retaliation. Therefore, they only sent 8th or 9th order cultivators. As a result, Myriad Demon's Ridge couldn't form a large-scale interception. Every time 3 to 5 people came, they basically never returned. After this happened several times, Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators didn't dare to act rashly anymore. News continued to spread. Myriad Demon's Ridge's cultivators roughly determined Lu Ye's direction through his movements. Although they didn't know his final destination, they had already gathered people in the distance. They were waiting for Lu Yi to break into their encirclement to give him a fatal blow. A day later, when the giant armor was flying over a large river that meandered like a dragon, there were 20 streams of light in the air in front of it, and they were aggressive. At the same time, almost 20 figures soared into the sky from the bottom of the river, blocking his path of retreat. In the blink of an eye, the road ahead was blocked and the way back was cut off. Without needing Lu Ye's order, Giant Jia had already flown to the side on his spirit artifact. However, he didn't fly far before dozens of streams of light soared into the sky from the hillside on the other side. It had to be said that Myriad Demon's Ridge's arrangement was very thorough this time. Their judgment was also very accurate. They had set up an ambush in advance on Lu Ye's path and were waiting for him to break into it. In fact, it wasn't just a matter of judgment. The main thing was that there were 2 more such encirclements nearby. As long as Lu Yi didn't deviate too much from their judgment, he would inevitably fall into the ambush. At this time, it was obviously too late to retreat. It was also unrealistic to stop the light. If he really fell to the ground, he would be dead for sure. Lu Ye's eyes drooped slightly. He took out 4 Imperial artifacts from his storage bag and silently urged his spirit chi. The 4 spirit artifacts floated beside him. Yi revealed her figure and stood behind Lu Yi. Spirit chi surged around Giant Jia's body and the Imperial artifact's stream of light suddenly accelerated. In the current situation, if they wanted to survive, they could only break out in one direction. Only then could they withstand the least pressure. As long as Giant Jia's Imperial artifact was fast enough, the first 2 groups of Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators wouldn't be able to pose a threat to them. Therefore, they only needed to deal with the first group of enemies in front of them. The distance between them quickly shortened. In the opposite camp, 7 or 8 spirit chi cultivators took the lead to activate their spells. In an instant, colorful lights shrouded them. Giant Jia's flying spirit artifact danced again. Under the stunned gazes of the Myriad Demon's Ridge cultivators, it dodged in midair and was always able to avoid the spell attacks at the most thrilling moments. They had never seen anyone who could use a flying spirit artifact so smoothly. This kind of control of spirit chi really made them sigh in admiration. As the distance continued to shrink, the frequency of the spell attacks began to increase. This was because the spirit chi cultivators realized that the powerful spells they had used so much effort to activate couldn't do anything to the other party. Thus, they chose to use smaller spells that could be cast quickly. As a result, the giant armor was rather overwhelmed, and it was unable to evade all of the attacks. However, it was smart enough to allow the attacks to land on its own body rather than its own flying spirit tool. He had thick skin and strong chi and blood, so it didn't matter if he was hit a few times by those small spells. However, the flying spirit artifact was different. This thing didn't have strong defensive power and could be destroyed after a few hits. He also attacked. When she attacked, all the spirit chi cultivators on the opposite side began to feel ashamed of their inferiority. This was because whether it was the speed of casting spells, the type of spells, or the power of the spells, he left them in the dust. Although she was only one person, the spells she released in a short period of time were no less than 3 or 4 spirit chi cultivators attacking together. Their spells collided in the air and the spirit chi surged chaotically. Rumbling sounds could be heard endlessly. In this chaotic situation, a spirit chi cultivator from the Myriad Devil Ridge suddenly pulled open a bow. The bowstring was almost pulled into a full moon shape. The surface of the bow and the spirit chi cultivator's body flashed wildly. The sound of something breaking through the air rang out, and a 4-foot-long arrow shot towards the giant armor almost instantly. The speed of the arrow surpassed all spells, and even the power of Imperial equipment could not compare to it. Judging from the power of the arrow, it was obviously extremely powerful. Giant Jia, who was focused on controlling his flying spirit artifact, couldn't dodge it. He roared and raised his arms in front of him. At some point, he was wearing a pair of pitch-black wrist guards on his arms. These wrist guards were clearly a good spirit artifact and gave off a thick and dignified feeling. The spirit chi of the spirit chi cultivator who shot the arrow was slightly disrupted. He had used up a lot of his spirit chi. Seeing Giant Jia's actions, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. He had also heard of Giant Jia's name. His all-out attack might pose a threat to ordinary body cultivators, but it was useless against Giant Jia. His arrow wasn't aimed at Giant Jia at all. The moment the arrow was about to hit Giant Jia, it suddenly slanted downward. Judging from the angle, it was clearly aimed at Giant Jia's flying spirit artifact. From the very beginning, the goal of this group of people was only this air transportation spiritual artifact. Seeing that the spirit chi cultivator's goal was about to succeed, the front of the flying spirit artifact was suddenly covered by a layer of spirit veins. The spirit veins formed an extremely thick defense in the blink of an eye. Behind Giant Jia, Lu Yi squatted down and placed one hand on the surface of the flying spirit artifact. With his current control of spirit chi, it was no problem for him to add a defensive spirit veins to Giant Jia's flying spirit artifact. Boom! When the arrow hit the flying spirit artifact, there was a loud explosion and chaotic spirit chi. Although it didn't completely destroy the flying spirit artifact as expected, the huge impact still caused the flying spirit artifact to sway and fall down. Giant Jia hurriedly tried to control it and stabilized it with great difficulty. However, due to the delay, even more magic techniques had arrived. That was not the most serious issue. Even more serious was the fact that the two groups of cultivators from the Myriad Demon's Ridge were rapidly approaching them. Soon, they would be within the range of their attacks. Chapter 306. Crash. Lu Yi shouted in a low voice as he added a wind spirit rune to his spirit artifact. With a flash of light, the newly stabilized air transportation spirit artifact immediately turned into a stream of light and flew straight ahead. The Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who had already summoned their spirit artifacts and were ready to use them to kill the enemy didn't even have time to react before the enemy was already in front of them. 4 streams of light flew out from Lu Ye's hand as he used her techniques at the same time to block the attacks coming from all directions. The expression of the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivator at the front became extremely frightened because the enemy was charging at him without dodging. Seeing that the enemy had no intention of changing directions, the cultivator couldn't help but shout in horror, "Don't come over!" Giant Armor ignored him. Since Lu Yi told him to crash, he would do it. Even if there was an iron wall in front of him, he wouldn't even frown. With a bang, the two air transportation spirit artifacts collided. The air transportation spirit artifact of the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivator shattered into pieces, while the cultivator's sternum caved in from the impact. He spat out blood and screamed as he fell down. On the other hand, Giant Armor's air transportation spirit artifact was unscathed. The moment the two sides collided, Lu Yi added a defensive spirit rune to his side. As for the caved in on the cultivator's sternum, it was caused by Giant Armor's punch. More screams came from the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who were injured by Lu Ye's spirit artifact and Yi's techniques. The obstruction in front had been broken. With the support of the Wind Spirit rune, Giant Armor quickly took Lu Yi and Yi away. The Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators chased after them for a while but had no choice but to give up. The enemy was running too fast. They were all 9th Order cultivators, but their speed was only half of Giant Armor's. How could they catch up? What the hell are you doing? How could they break through so easily? One of the Myriad Demon Ridge cultivators who hurried over was livid and couldn't help but curse. The Myriad Demon Ridge had carefully deployed their forces and waited for Lu Yi to arrive. They thought that they could kill him here, but things didn't go as they wished and he still managed to escape. This made them feel a sense of frustration, as if they had punched cotton. If you're so good, then go ahead. A young man with lingering fear replied with an ugly expression, "Giant Armor is as stubborn as the Heaven's Fate Pillar. Who can stop him? This is not an excuse for your failure. One person can't stop him, but there are so many of you. Don't be so sarcastic. If giant armor had broken through from your side, the situation would have been the same. Bullshit. All right, let's not talk too much. Someone jumped out to smooth things over. We're all here for Luya. Since the operation has failed, there's no need to hurt our friendship. If word gets out, the Hautian Alliance will laugh at us. The quarreling duo glared at each other with hatred, both of them loathing each other. The other myriad Devil Ridge cultivators also had solemn expressions. They had all seen the situation just now. Giant Armor's head was indeed a little too strong. Ordinary cultivators would not choose such a dangerous method when fighting in midair. It was said that Luya could activate spirit tattoos to fight and had the potential to become a battle rune master. Now it seemed that the spirit tattoos he had mastered could not only enhance himself, but also enhance the flying spirit artifact's defense. This was very tricky. Also, Giant Armor's flying spirit artifact was too fast. There was no lack of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who were very good at flying spirit artifacts, but compared to Giant Armor, they paled in comparison. Everyone suddenly realized that there was no way to deal with Luya. This time, they had mobilized so many people and he had fallen into the encirclement, but they still failed to stop him. It would be difficult to have such an opportunity again in the future. It was unrealistic to wait for him to land and besiege him. Even if there was such an opportunity, this guy still had a flight wing tattoo. If they couldn't beat him, he would definitely fly away. Also, where was this guy going? After leaving the Divine Hidden Palace's station, he had been on his way. As for his destination, no one knew for the time being. How to deal with Luya had become a difficult problem for myriad Devil Ridge. Today, he was no longer the little fifth-order cultivator who was besieged on top of the Golden Light. Compared to that time, Luya's methods were undoubtedly much richer now. The cultivators of the inner circle alone could not do anything to him. If they wanted to deal with him, they could only let the people of the inner circle take action, but if they really did so, it would definitely lead to some bad consequences. Last time, Myriad Devil Ridge broke the rules. As a result, a true Lake Realm master of the Jade Blood sect killed his way into the Spirit Stream battlefield without saying a word. He braved the soul-extinguishing divine thunder and killed his way into the Golden Light. After the battle on top of the Golden Light, the sect master of the Jade Blood sect was even more ruthless. He personally killed his way into the Cloud Province and destroyed 3 Myriad Devil Ridge forces in a row. Although he was repelled by the Myriad Devil Ridge Masters who rushed over after hearing the news, the Spirit Sea Realm Masters of the Myriad Devil Ridge did not dare to recklessly retaliate, so the matter was left unsettled. It was said that the ranks of the 3 forces plummeted in the following sect assessment. It was extremely miserable. The Jade Blood sect's style of protecting their own left a deep impression on everyone. If they broke the rules this time, who knew what methods the Jade Blood sect would use to retaliate? However, if they only acted within the rules, there was really no good way to deal with Luya. For a moment, it was melancholy. 2 days later, news came that Luya had arrived at the Sky Expanse sect station. Because of this, the Myriad Devil Ridge confirmed the destination of his trip and immediately felt that something was wrong. Why were they so intent on targeting Luyi? It was because of the amazing talent he had shown in breaking spirit arrays. Although the methods he used in the Windflower Courtyard and Sunlight Mountain could not be repeated for various reasons, and the Myriad Devil Ridge would not give him such opportunities again, no one dared to let him continue to grow. Otherwise, no one would be able to live a peaceful life in the future. Just the thought of being able to break through the defensive formation of the encampment was enough to make one shudder. But what kind of place was the Sky Expanse sect? It was the sect where the first part of the 100-array pagoda was located. Moreover, many cultivators in the Sky Expanse sect were proficient in the Tao of arrays. Although the Great Elder of the Sky Expanse sect was only at the 9th Order True Lake Realm, his attainments in the Tao of arrays were among the best in the 9 provinces. Luya could have gone anywhere, but to the Sky Expanse sect. His purpose was self-evident. This guy was obviously addicted to breaking spirit arrays. He knew that he could not continue to use his original methods, So he wanted to go to the Sky Expanse sect to further his studies in the Tao of Arrays. If he succeeded, would the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators still be able to sleep in the future? Maybe the spirit array of the station would be broken somehow, and then a large group of Grand Heaven Alliance cultivators would come in. A huge sense of crisis shrouded the heads of every myriad Devil Ridge sect like thousands of dark clouds. For a moment, even the Spirit Sea Realm cultivators realized the seriousness of the problem. As soon as Lu Ye entered the Sky Expanse sect station, many Spirit Sea Realm cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge shuttled back and forth across the 9 provinces like snowflakes, urgently discussing how to deal with this matter. A little 8th Order Spirit Stream Realm cultivators' unintentional actions had stirred up the 9 provinces. This had never happened before. As the person involved, Lu Ye was unaware of this. After he rushed out of the encirclement of nearly 100 myriad Devil Ridge cultivators, he did not encounter any more trouble. He rushed to the Sky Expanse sect station with giant armor and hoop. Under the warm reception of the vice envoy of the Sky Expanse sect, he stayed in the guest area. He did not see Zhao Li. According to the vice envoy, Zhao Li was in the main sect of the 9 provinces and seemed to be unable to leave for the time being, so he was sent to receive him. Lu Ye naturally did not have any objections to this. Since he was already here, he might as well take things as they came. Although he wanted to enter the 100 Array Pagoda to take a look, there was no need to rush. It would not be too late to wait until Zhao Li finished dealing with the matter at hand. At the same time, in a large hall of the Sky Expanse sect's main sect, Sky Expanse sect's sect master, Yu Shao, and Great Elder Bai Qian sat on his left and right. The former looked like a middle-aged man in his early 40s with a dignified appearance. However, the age of cultivators could not be judged from their appearance. They often looked young and might have lived for hundreds of years. As for the latter, he was a little old man with white hair and a ruddy complexion. In front of the two stood Zhao Li. At this moment, Zhao Li's face was pale as if he had done something wrong. With a long face, he said, "Sect Master, Great Elder, Disciple did not think too much. I thought that since fellow Taoist Yi had talent in the Tao of Arrays, I would invite him to the Sky Expanse sect. If he could make a breakthrough in his Tao of Arrays, the Sky Expanse sect would be able to benefit from it." What he said was the truth. He originally thought that there was nothing wrong with his plan, but after being reminded by the sect master and great elder, he realized that he had made a grave mistake. If it was a normal time, he would have wanted to befriend Lu Ye and invite him to the Sky Expanse sect as a guest. The large sects in the 9 provinces had close relations with each other. Spirit Stream Realm disciples would often help each other. Moreover, the Sky Expanse sect and the Jade Blood sect had some relationship. However, this was absolutely not the time. Not long ago, Lu Ye had caused such a huge commotion. At this moment, there were countless eyes on the myriad Devil Ridge. Inviting Lu Ye to the Sky Expanse sect at this time would definitely make the myriad Devil Ridge nervous. They were afraid that Lu Ye would learn about arrays in the Sky Expanse sect and make a breakthrough in his Tao of Arrays. Currently, the myriad Devil Ridge could still guard against Lu Ye. However, if his Tao of Arrays was higher, they would not be able to defend against him. Under such circumstances, if Lu Ye entered the Sky Expanse sect's encampment, the myriad Devil Ridge would definitely respond. The biggest possibility was that the myriad Devil Ridge would gather a large number of people in a short period of time and attack the Sky Expanse sect's encampment to force Lu Ye to leave. Therefore, if Lu Ye came to the Sky Expanse sect's encampment as a guest, it was equivalent to roasting the Sky Expanse sect on the fire. If they did not handle it well, the encampment would be gone. Do not underestimate the myriad Devil Ridge's courage and determination. If the Grand Heaven Alliance encountered such a situation, they would not be any gentler than this. This was also the reason why the Sky Expanse sect master and great elder were personally involved in this matter. Otherwise, why would they, as true Lake Realm cultivators, intervene in the matters of a few Spirit Stream Realm cultivators? After being summoned here and hearing the great elder's explanation, Zhao Li realized that he had not considered this matter properly. Chapter 307. Yu Shao glared at Zhao Li with resentment. "You only know how to play with your little tricks. You're so short-sighted. After being reprimanded by his sect master, Zhao Li sniffed and said, Disciple was wrong. His attitude of admitting his mistake was quite good. Disciple will send a message to fellow Taoist Yi and tell him not to come, Zhao Li said. You've already sent an invitation, how can you tell him not to come? Wouldn't that make Heaven Expanse sect disciples untrustworthy? Zhao Li said, Fellow Taoist Yi is very easy to get along with. I'll explain the whole story to him and he should be able to understand. Once this storm passes, he can quietly come again. No need, he's already at the station. Yu Xiao waved his hand. He had just received a message from a disciple saying that Blue Blood Sect's Lu Yi had already arrived at the station and had been settled down. That doesn't matter, disciple will go find him now, Zhao Li said and turned to leave. Come back. Yu Xiao shouted. The little old man by Qian stretched out his foot at the same time. Zhao Li didn't react in time and almost fell over, but he quickly turned around and obediently stood up. Heaven Expanse sect disciples, you can't go back on your word. No matter what, you can't go back on your word. If Myriad Devil Ridge learns that that little fellow has come to our sect, they will definitely target us. At worst, we'll just abandon our station. Sect Master, Yu Zhao's sharp gaze softened. I know you're thinking for our sect. Our sect's position in the Spirit Stream battlefield isn't very good, and we've been surrounded by Myriad Devil Ridge from 3 sides. It hasn't been easy for us to develop these past few years. You have great ambitions, but you must remember to think twice before you act in the future. In addition, our sect has some ties with Blue Blood Sect. In the past, many of our sect's experts were subordinates of that person. If it weren't for that person, our sect wouldn't have its current status. A 5th-grade sect isn't bad. Zhao Li didn't know who the sect master was referring to, but he understood the meaning behind the sect master's words. The sect master didn't want him to feel too much of a psychological burden. Even if it was because of their relationship with the Blue Blood Sect, Heaven Evolution Sect wouldn't drive Lu Yi away. Go to the station and make preparations. Our sect might face a disaster. Yu Xiao waved his hand. Zhao Li bowed and retreated. After he left, Yu Xiao sighed. Although he had made up his mind, he still couldn't help but feel heartache. If things went as he expected, his family's base would be destroyed. Is it serious? Bai Qian asked. I heard some rumors. Yu Xiao nodded and suddenly asked, What do you think of Lu Yi's talent in Formation Dao, old Bai? Bai Qian pondered for a moment and said, According to what Zhao Li said, that little fellow's natural talent is extraordinary. Moreover, he has many wonderful ideas. There's only one thing that I don't understand now. What is it? That little guy is only at the 8th order spirit stream realm. How did he see through the nodes of the spirit array? His various methods must be targeted at the nodes for them to be effective. Logically speaking, even if his talent in the Tao of spirit arrays is pretty good, it's useless if he can't find the nodes of the spirit array. It's really strange. Perhaps Elder Bai can test him in person? This old man thinks so too. Let's wait for him to come over. When the time comes, let him come and see this old man. Sky Expanse Sect Station. In the small building where Lu Yi lived, Zhao Li arrived late and hurriedly apologized. He also ordered the disciples to prepare a banquet to welcome Lu Yi. Although Lu Yi really wanted to see the 100-array pagoda, he couldn't refuse when others were so enthusiastic, so he just let Zhao Li be. Soon, the banquet was ready. Lu Yi and Zhu Jia sat down, accompanied by Zhao Li. As an apology, Zhao Li first punished himself with 3 cups of wine before making a toast. Lu Yi drank a cup with him. As for Zhu Jia, he was already stuffing himself with food. Brother Yi, has the journey been peaceful? Zhao Li asked as he poured wine. It's been smooth, but when Lu Yi spoke up to hear, he suddenly stopped speaking and frowned. Because he didn't know why, but there was something strange in his body. He quickly immersed his mind to investigate. Under introspection, he saw that the talent tree had taken root in his source spirit aperture. Its leaves were burning fiercely, and beside the talent tree, there was a gray aura constantly spreading out. Normally speaking, there was nothing abnormal about this situation. Every time Lu Yi took a spirit pill, The talent tree would have this reaction because the pill poison in the spirit pill would be burned by the talent tree, allowing him to obtain extremely pure spirit energy. But now, this situation was clearly not right. He hadn't taken his spirit pill yet. Moreover, under his observation, the gray mist rising from the talent tree was extremely dense. It wasn't a reaction that should be caused by burning pill poison. This was the first time Lu Yi had seen something like this. Brother Yi? Zhao Li looked at him in confusion, not knowing why Lu Ye's expression was slowly turning grave. Lu Yi raised his hand to press down on Zhu Jia's chopsticks and looked at Zhao Li. After a brief analysis and hesitation, he said in a low voice, "There's poison in the wine." And the poison was very strong. But from Zhao Li's reaction, the poison didn't act quickly because there was nothing abnormal about Zhao Li. Of course, it was also possible that Zhao Li had poisoned him, but the possibility wasn't high. After all, this was the Sky Expanse Sect's encampment, and Zhao Li was a guardian. If he poisoned himself, the consequences would be dire. This was also why Lu Yi had spoken so bluntly. At the same time, it was also Lu Ye's way of probing. Under his observation, Zhao Li's expression was clearly a little stunned, and he said weakly, "Brother Yi, are you joking?" Lu Yi didn't say anything. "But I don't feel anything." Zhao Li was a little flustered. Lu Yi turned to look at Zhu Jia, who slowly shook his head. He also didn't feel anything, but Zhu Jia hadn't drunk any wine. He had just been eating, so he didn't know if there was poison in the food. Lu Yi continued to examine the talent tree. The dense gray mist had dimmed in a short period of time. It was clear that the poison had been burned away. He didn't know that the talent tree had such a strange effect, but it wasn't strange. The talent tree could even burn away pill poison, so it could naturally burn away other poisons. After a dozen or so breaths, no more gray mist drifted out, making Lu Yi unsure if his speculation was correct. After thinking for a moment, he poured himself another cup of wine and downed it in one gulp. Zhao Li stared at him in a daze. "Brother Yi?" He didn't understand what Lu Yi was doing. Just now, he had said that there was poison in the wine, but now he had downed another cup. Was he really joking with him? There really is poison. Lu Yi once again saw the dense gray mist drifting out from his talent tree. Zhao Li was completely dumbfounded. For a moment, his mind couldn't wrap itself around the situation. His thoughts were in a mess, and he didn't know if it was a psychological effect, but he felt that he wasn't feeling too well. Then he saw Lu Yi pick up another dish with his chopsticks and eat it. After a moment, he said, "There's poison in the food too." "Brother Yi." Zhao Li was about to cry. "Spit it out." Lu Yi turned to Zhu Jia, who immediately stood up and walked to the side. Lu Yi raised his hand and tapped his battlefield imprint, sending a message out. He then looked at Zhao Li. "Brother Zhao, please send an order to seal off the base. No one is allowed to leave. Also, check if anyone has left the base in the past 2 hours. If there is, please send someone you trust to bring them back." Hearing this, Zhao Li also realized the seriousness of the situation. Lu Yi didn't seem to be joking with him. There really was poison in the wine and food. After a moment of surprise, Zhao Li hurriedly sent out a message. At the Blue Blood Sect's main sect, Shui Yuan hurriedly rushed into the sect master's residence, alarming the sect master who was meditating. "Lu Yi has been poisoned." A cold light flashed in the sect master's eyes as he asked in a deep voice, "Where is he?" "The Heaven Expanse Sect's base." The sect master immediately stood up, and after a few breaths, 2 figures turned into streaks of light and shot into the sky. At the Heaven Expanse Sect's main sect, Yu Zhao's face turned ashen when he received the news. He slapped the armrest of his chair to pieces and gritted his teeth. "Bastard!" The Blue Blood Sect's Lu Yi had been poisoned not long after arriving at their base. This was clearly the work of someone in the dark. However, Yu Zhao didn't expect that there would be people from the Myriad Demon Ridge in the Heaven Expanse sect, and that they would act so quickly. The 2 camps had been at odds with each other for so many years, and it was common for them to plant spies in the other camp. No one dared to say that their own sect's disciples were completely innocent. Some spies might not expose their identities for the rest of their lives, but once they made a move at a critical moment, they would definitely cause great losses to the enemy. For example, When the head teacher brought Lu Yi back to the Blue Blood sect's main sect, they were ambushed on the way. That ambush was caused by a spy from the Myriad Devil Ridge. Moreover, that spy was a true lake-stage cultivator. Although Pang Zhen was able to find clues and eliminate that spy, if it weren't for their good luck, Lu Yi would have died long ago. Both sides spent a lot of effort and paid a price to nurture spies. Generally, even if they were successfully planted, it was very likely that they would be found out. Those spies that could be hidden were all extremely important. Unless it was a critical moment, they would not be easily used. But this time, the Myriad Demon Ridge was obviously forced into a corner. In order to deal with an 8th Order Spirit Stream Realm cultivator, they did not hesitate to use a spy planted in the Heaven Expanse sect. Soon, Great Elder Bai Qian returned with a serious expression. "What's the situation now?" "It has been confirmed that he was poisoned. As for who did it, we are still investigating for the time being, but we have roughly identified a few candidates. No matter what, we have to find the person who poisoned him. Only then can we determine what kind of poison it is and prescribe the right medicine," Great Elder said in a deep voice. "I think so too." That Lu Yi had already made this arrangement, and Zhao Li also acted according to the other party's arrangements. They are so calm at such a young age. Bai Qian was a little surprised. How are they now? Zhao Li said that the symptoms are not very obvious. It should be a very hidden poison, but the toxicity is very strong. The symptoms are not obvious, but the toxicity is very strong. Bai Qian frowned. This was obviously not right. If the toxicity was strong enough, the symptoms should be very obvious. These two characteristics should not appear at the same time. Chapter 308. Since the symptoms aren't obvious, how can you be sure that the poison is fierce? Zhao Li said it was Lu Yi's judgment. Tell them to return to the sect as soon as possible. I've already sent a message to them. At Heaven Expanse Sect Station at a table, Lu Yi looked at Zhao Li and watched as 2 streams of blood flowed out of his nostrils before suddenly turning around and punching Giant Armor's nose. This punch was so powerful that Giant Armor was a little stunned. It looked at Lu Yi with a puzzled expression, and then blood flowed out of its nostrils. "Punch me," Lu Yi said to Giant Armor. Giant Armor raised his hand and scratched his head, replying in a muffled voice, "I won't." Lu Yi was speechless and could only slam his head against the table in front of him, seeing stars for a moment before he raised his head and sniffed. Zhao Li was a little dizzy and his voice was weak as he asked, "Brother Ye, what are you doing?" "Let's go to your Heaven Expanse sect." Lu Yi called out to Giant Armor. Giant Armor stood up as if nothing had happened and picked up Zhao Li, who was still a little unsteady on his feet. "Pick me up too," Lu Yi hurriedly shouted. "Oh!" Giant Armor lifted Lu Yi up, placed him on his shoulder, and strode off in the direction of Heaven Expanse Sect's heavenly secret hall. Along the way, the Heaven Expanse Sect disciples who saw this scene were all confused, but soon news spread that the Blue Blood Sect's guests and their sect guardian Zhao Li had all been poisoned. Many Heaven Expanse Sect disciples were in an uproar as they finally understood why their station had suddenly been sealed off and why they were investigating who was not inside. Lu Yi had just arrived at Heaven Expanse Sect Station and had already been poisoned. The culprit was obviously a Heaven Expanse Sect disciple, and one who had access to the food. This kind of matter was not difficult to investigate, so the culprit could not be concealed. If he wanted to live, he could only leave Heaven Expanse Sect Station as soon as possible. Anyone who had access to the food and left the station within an hour was definitely the culprit. It was just that no one had expected Lu Yi's innate skill tree to be able to burn poison, so he was the first to notice it. This led to the person who made the move in the dark not expecting himself to be exposed so quickly. Therefore, as long as the Sky Expanse Sect acted fast enough, they still had a chance to catch the person who escaped. Right now, Lu Yi was only glad that Hupa only ate raw meat and did not eat the food on the table. Judging from Zhao Li and Giant Armor's reactions, the weaker one's constitution was, the greater the reaction. That was why Giant Armor acted as if nothing had happened. However, once the poison erupted, Giant Armor might not be able to withstand it. There was a high chance that they would not be able to withstand it. Since the Myriad Demon Ridge had already made a move, they would definitely ensure that nothing went wrong. Lu Yi and Zhao Li had already formed an alliance, and Zhu Jia had been accepted as an in-name disciple of the Jade Blood sect. Therefore, even if the two of them were not from the Heaven Expanse sect, they could use the Heaven Expanse sect's Heaven Pillar to enter the Heaven Expanse sect. When they arrived at the main sect, the higher-ups of the Sky Expanse sect, who had already received the news, were waiting for them under Yu Zhao's lead. Their expressions were gloomy. A member of Jade Blood sect had died in their territory, so no matter what, they couldn't absolve themselves from the blame. If Lu Yi died in Heaven Expanse sect, they didn't know how to explain it to Jade Blood sect. Heaven Expanse sect's medical cultivators had already made preparations. After a while, the three of them were placed in a room, and each of them was taken care of by a medical cultivator. At this time, Zhao Li's situation was very bad. He was constantly vomiting blood and looked very dispirited. The medical cultivator in charge of treating him was very busy. Giant Armor also had some reactions, but his symptoms weren't as serious as Zhao Li's. As for Lu Yi, his head tilted and he fainted after arriving at the Heaven Expanse sect's main sect. The medical cultivator in charge of him carefully examined him and raised her eyebrows. Things weren't simple. She carefully examined him for a moment and confirmed that she wasn't mistaken. Then, she got up and came to Yu Zhao's side and whispered a few words. Yu Zhao showed a surprised look and whispered, "Are you sure?" The female medical cultivator with third-order True Lake cultivation nodded, "I'm sure." Yu Zhao had a lot of trust in the medical skills of this medical cultivator. She could be said to be the most skilled medical cultivator in the entire Heaven Expanse sect. No one else could compare to her. Sending their most skilled medical cultivator to treat Lu Yi showed that Heaven Expanse sect had put a lot of thought into this. "Then go take care of Zhao Li," Yu Zhao ordered. While he let out a long breath, he was worried about his disciple again. However, he was the sect master after all. He quickly understood Lu Ye's intentions and didn't expose him. He just let him lie there. Time passed by. With the medical cultivator's help, Zhao Li's condition slowly stabilized. As for Giant Armor, his reaction wasn't too big. After a night, Zhao Li's aura completely stabilized. Obviously, his life was no longer in danger, but he still didn't wake up. Giant Armor also fell asleep. The female medical cultivator walked to Yu Zhao's side and reported, "Sect Master, the poison in their bodies has been removed." "That means they're fine?" Yu Zhao breathed a sigh of relief. Zhao Li was talented and quick-witted. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to sit in the position of guardian. It would be a great loss if he died like this. The female medical cultivator said, "Logically speaking, they should be fine, but judging from their reactions, I suspect." "Suspect what?" "I suspect that the poison doesn't only affect the body, but also the soul." This was also the reason why the medical cultivator could remove the poison so easily. Yu Zhao's expression instantly turned serious. "Are you sure?" The female medical cultivator glanced at Zhao Li and Giant Armor who were lying there. 70%. That's troublesome. Poison that targeted the soul was the most difficult to remove. If the poison person was at the Divine Ocean Realm, then it would be fine. At this level, the power of the soul could be directly seen. It would be easier to remove the poison. But then again, Divine Ocean Realm cultivators wouldn't be so easily poisoned. Zhao Li and Giant Armor were only Spirit Stream Realm cultivators. Although they had their own souls, that was an innate power. If their cultivation level wasn't high enough, they couldn't use it at will. They couldn't cooperate with the medical cultivator to remove the poison. Now that both of them were unconscious, there was no need to talk about cooperating. Myriad Demon Ridge didn't hesitate to use a hidden spy to deal with Lu Yi. Obviously, they were very confident. As soon as the unknown poison appeared, the medical cultivators of Heaven Expanse sect were helpless. "Sect Master, if we don't think of a way, they will most likely die slowly in their sleep. Giant Armor may be able to last for 10 days or half a month, but Zhao Li shouldn't be able to live for more than 2 days. The meaning of the female medical cultivator's words was obvious. Their medical skills were limited and they were helpless in the current situation. They are all in the 9th order, But why is the gap between Zhao Li and the others so big? Yu Xiao frowned. They were both poisoned. One could only live for 2 days, while the other could last for 10 days or half a month. The gap was too obvious. The female medical cultivator shook her head. I'm not sure, but based on the symptoms, Giant Armor is obviously much lighter. Perhaps his soul is naturally stronger than others. When she said this, she couldn't help but glance at Lu Yi, who was lying there. Giant Armor's situation could be attributed to his innate soul, but what about this person? When they were treating Zhao Li's wounds, Zhao Li had told them that Lu Yi had also drunk the poisoned wine and eaten a few mouthfuls of food, so he should have been poisoned too. Oh bye. Yu Xiao looked at his grand elder. Please set up a soul-nourishing formation and place them in there. Since a powerful soul could suppress the poison, they had to find a way to strengthen it. Although the soul-nourishing formation was quite costly and would not be of much use in the short term, they could not care less about that right now. This old man will go right away. Bai Qian turned around and left. Which medical cultivator in the Mist Province do you think can cure this poison? Yu Xiao looked at the female medical cultivator. The female medical cultivator thought about it before shaking her head gloomily. Although there are medical cultivators in the Mist Province who are more skilled than me, curing this poison probably isn't something that can be done with just their medical skills. Perhaps what? Sect Master, have you forgotten? The Jade Blood Sect has a peak medical cultivator in the first place. Yu Xiao thought about it and suddenly returned to his senses. He said in a hurry, I'll send a message to old Tang right away. He had become rather muddle-headed from all the work earlier. He should have sent a message to old Tang as soon as it concerned the disciples of the Jade Blood Sect. He sent a message and received a reply very soon. Yu Xiao was slightly surprised, as old Tang was actually already on the way, and he had brought that senior sister Shui Yuan with him. Yu Xiao looked at Lu Yi on the bed and realized that this should have been Lu Ye's handiwork. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for the two of them from the Jade Blood Sect to arrive so quickly. With a wave of his hand, he dismissed everyone else. Yu Xiao stayed behind by himself. My friend Lu, Yu Xiao called out gently. Lu Yi, who had been unconscious ever since he arrived at the main sect of the Heaven Expanse sect, opened his eyes. He stood up slowly and bowed. Sect Master Yu. He could fool everyone else by pretending to be unconscious, but he definitely could not fool the female medical cultivator who had examined him. She definitely would not hide something like this from Yu Xiao. Now that Yu Xiao had stayed behind by himself, he clearly had something to say to him. Old Tang and senior sister Shui Yuan are already on their way. They should arrive in less than half a day. The War Province and the Mist Province were very far apart, but Divine Sea Realm cultivators could still fly very quickly. Once Lu Yi sent a message, the sect master and second senior sister immediately set off. It obviously would not take them long to arrive. You should have heard everything earlier. Yu Xiao looked at Zhao Li on one side. Zhao Li might have invited you over for personal reasons, but he definitely doesn't have any intentions of harming you. I just never expected the human heart to be so unpredictable. Our sect actually possesses a spy from the Myriad Demon Ridge, causing you and my friend Giant Armored to suffer. Our sect? Lu Yi raised his hand and stopped him. There's no need to say anything more, Sect Master Yu. I already understand the situation. Just like how it's hard to guard against a thief in your own home, no one wants to see this happen. Yu Xiao nodded. It's for the best that you can think like that. There's something I'd like to ask of you. Don't worry. Senior sister Shui Yuan won't vent her anger on the Heaven Expanse sect. Brother Zhao and I have hit it off pretty well. Once senior sister Shui Yuan arrives, I'll ask her to treat Brother Zhao. Chapter 309. When Yu Xiao said that he had a request, Lu Yi knew what he wanted to say. The Heaven Expanse sect's medical cultivators were helpless against Giant Jia and Zhao Li's situation. Just now, Yu Xiao was thinking of going to other sects to invite more skilled medical cultivators, but since senior sister Shui Yuan was on the way, there was no need to invite anyone else. In the 9 regions, there should be some medical practitioners with better medical skills than Shui Yuan, but they were all in the Spirit Sea realm. These people were scattered all over the 9 regions and were the stabilizing force of those first-grade sections. It was not easy to ask them to come out of seclusion. Moreover, they might not care about the life and death of 2 spirit stream realm cultivators. Therefore, even if Yu Xiao went to invite someone, the person he invited would not be as good as Shui Yuan. It could be said that in the 9 provinces, other than those spirit ocean realm medical cultivators, no one was better than Shui Yuan of the Jade Blood sect in terms of medical skills. The Jade Blood sect's style of protecting their own had been deeply experienced in the 9 provinces. If Shui Yuan was angry and did not treat Zhao Li, the Heaven Expanse sect would not be in a position to blame her. However, as the sect master, Yu Xiao could not watch his disciple be poisoned to death. Therefore, he wanted to ask Lu Yi to plead for leniency. To Lu Yi, this was not a big deal. If senior sister Shui Yuan really had the means to remove the soul poison, there was no difference between treating one person and treating 2 people. Lu Yi still had to study Array Dao in the Heaven Expanse sect. With this favor, he could stay with a clear conscience. The only thing he needed to worry about now was whether his second senior sister could save Giant Jia and Zhao Li with her medical skills. Lu Yi heard the conversation between the female medical cultivator and Yu Xiao clearly. It was true that his second senior sister's medical skills were superb, but the female medical cultivator also said that this matter could not be solved with just her medical skills. Then little friend Lu, rest well. I will ask them to keep your condition a secret. I will also give you a satisfactory explanation for this matter. Yu Xiao walked away. When he reached the door, he suddenly stopped. This sect master still has one thing that I do not understand. I wonder if you can answer it. Lu Yi looked at him. Yu Xiao said, "Little friend, you should have been poisoned too. Why is there no reaction? Maybe it's because I'm gifted and immune to all poisons?" Yu Xiao couldn't help but laugh as he shook his head and left. He naturally wouldn't believe Qin Shi's nonsense. There was no one in this world that was immune to poison, and even if there was, it was only able to resist poison that targeted the body, and it was absolutely impossible to resist poison that targeted the soul. What he didn't know was that, in a sense, Lu Yi was indeed immune to poison. The talent tree could even completely burn away something like pill poison, so what could other poisons do to it? Although it was Lu Ye's first time learning about the talent tree's ability, he could faintly sense that burning the poison had consumed a lot of the talent tree's stored fuel. Once the fuel was used up, he would have to use the skill tree to devour the core fire. However, this matter wasn't urgent. It wasn't that he didn't want to have more spirit runes, but that he needed to accumulate merit points. Previously, he was accumulating merit points to buy a heaven-grade cultivation method. Now, he was accumulating merit points for another matter, and this matter required a huge amount of merit points, enough to make any spirit stream realm cultivator shrink back. This was also the reason why he was so passionate about attacking other people's stations. Just the merit points obtained from killing enemies couldn't satisfy his needs. Even if he sold all his spoils of war to the Tianji treasury, it still wouldn't be enough. Attacking and occupying other people's encampments would yield more merit points. Although the merit points obtained would have to be converted into sect merit points through the Tianji pillar, and then be paid out in the form of a monthly salary, the rewards obtained were incomparable to killing enemies. But then again, Yu Xiao was indeed a meticulous person. Before he left, he specifically told Lu Yi that he would keep the Heaven Expanse sect's people's mouths shut about Lu Ye's situation. It was clear that he had noticed something. When Lu Yi noticed that the food was poisoned, he immediately sent a message to his senior apprentice sister Shui Yuan. First, his second senior apprentice sister's medical skills were superb. Calling her over might be able to save his life. Second, he wanted to take this opportunity to fade away from the myriad Devil Ridge's sight. Ever since he left the Divine Hidden Palace's station, the myriad Devil Ridge had been keeping an eye on him. Along the way, he encountered many ambushes. He had just arrived at the Heaven Expanse sect's station when he was poisoned. Moreover, it was a fierce poison that even the Heaven Expanse sect's medical cultivators were helpless against. The myriad Devil Ridge's desire to kill him was extremely strong. If he really died in this poisoning incident, it would probably make the myriad Devil Ridge feel at ease. It would also divert the myriad devil ridge's attention away from him for a short period of time. The Heaven Expanse sect's news of Lu Ye's death might not be enough to convince the myriad devil ridge, but if senior apprentice Sister Shui Yuan was present, the situation would be different. He had already explained his situation to his second senior apprentice sister in the message, but he didn't expect her to bring the head teacher over. This made Lu Ye's heart feel warm. Turning his head to look at the sleeping giant armor, Lu Ye's expression slowly turned solemn. He had the protection of the talent tree, so he was indeed fine, but giant armor was poisoned. He didn't know if his second senior apprentice sister could save giant armor. Giant armor had benefited from the soul cleansing pool, but even he couldn't resist the inexplicable poison. It could be seen how fierce the poison was. The person who had secretly poisoned them had already been captured by the Heaven Expanse sect. When Lu Yi had discovered that the food was poisoned, he had asked Zhao Li to make the appropriate arrangements. The person who had poisoned them clearly hadn't expected that the matter would be exposed so quickly and had been captured not long after escaping. The Heaven Expanse sect naturally wouldn't be polite to this kind of person who was a disciple of the Heaven Expanse sect on the surface but was actually a spy of the myriad devil ridge. After interrogating him, they obtained the remnants of the poison from him. After a careful examination by the female medical cultivator, they confirmed their previous speculation. The poison acted more on the soul and didn't cause much damage to the physical body. Therefore, whether it was giant armor or Zhao Li, their physical bodies were fine at this moment. However, if the soul poison wasn't cured, the two of them would undoubtedly die. According to the spy, he had originally carried this poison as a precaution, as he didn't know when he would need it. However, Li just happened to come to Heaven Expanse sect, and Myriad Demon Ridge couldn't wait to kill him, so he was ordered to act in secret. While they were interrogating the spy, groups of Myriad Devil Ridge cultivators arrived outside the Sky Expanse sect's encampment. Initially, there weren't many people, and they were all from the 3 nearby Myriad Devil Ridge forces. Each of them sent out about 200 people, but in just half a day, the number of people increased dramatically, breaking through the 1,000 mark. When the news reached the Heaven Expanse sect, it was shaken. Although Zhao Li had made preparations under Yu Zhao's orders, even with the protection of the Great Protective Array, the defensive power of a station was limited. If there were too many enemies, even the strongest Great Protective Array wouldn't be able to withstand them. The number of people gathered by the Myriad Devil Ridge had already exceeded the limit of what the Heaven Expanse sect could withstand. Furthermore, from the looks of it, more and more people from the Myriad Devil Ridge were still rushing over. Each time, there would only be 100 or 200 people. This number was obviously the number of people that a sect could dispatch. However, there were many sects participating in this matter. Some of the sects from the Myriad Devil Ridge had even rushed over from far away. This wasn't common in the Spirit Stream battlefield because it was very easy to be ambushed by enemies halfway. The Heaven Expanse sect urgently asked for reinforcements, but the forces that the nearby alliance sects could mobilize were very limited. Under the premise that the enemy had an absolute advantage in numbers, rashly clashing with the enemy would inevitably result in heavy losses. However, no one could just watch as the Heaven Expanse sect station was breached. Under such circumstances, the Myriad Devil Ridge brazenly launched an attack on the Heaven Expanse sect station. Even though the nearby alliance sects sent people to restrain them and disperse some of the Myriad Devil Ridge's forces, the Heaven Expanse sect still couldn't protect their station in the end. The Great Protective Array was forcibly breached. Faced with the Myriad Devil Ridge's cultivators surging over like a tidal wave, the Heaven Expanse sect's disciples could only temporarily retreat to the 9 states. For a time, the entire Heaven Expanse sect was shrouded in a sorrowful atmosphere. The Heaven Expanse sect had been established for so many years and its station had been breached several times, but it had never been so sullen. From the beginning to the end, the Heaven Expanse sect didn't even have the slightest strength to resist. They basically watched as the Great Protective Array was slowly worn down. However, it was precisely because of this that the Heaven Expanse sect had enough time to withdraw their disciples from the 9 states. Otherwise, there would definitely be a large number of casualties. It could be considered a great fortune amidst the misfortune. At present, The disciples didn't suffer any casualties, but they couldn't return to their station for the time being. It was said that the myriad Devil Ridge didn't leave after taking over the Heaven Expanse Sect station. Instead, they brazenly stayed there. This was clearly a silent warning. The myriad Devil Ridge used the method of breaching the Heaven Expanse Sect station to warn the other Grand Sky Alliance sects about the consequences of accepting the Jade Blood sect's Luya. In this regard, the Grand Sky Alliance was naturally unconvinced. Many of the sect's guardian envoys contacted each other and prepared to gather for a counterattack. However, they quickly gave up. It wasn't that they didn't have the courage. They were all hot-blooded people and had the determination to fight to the death. It was mainly because of the restrictions from the elders of the various sections. The Heaven Expanse Sect station had been taken over. If the Grand Sky Alliance counterattacked at this time, there would definitely be a large-scale battle. At that time, the myriad Devil Ridge wouldn't have an easy time, and the Grand Sky Alliance would also suffer a large number of casualties. This was something that the older generation of cultivators couldn't accept. As a result, the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who stayed in the Heaven Expanse Sect station became even more complacent and arrogant. In the Shining Palace's station, Gu Kanyang and Wei Li, who heard the news, trembled. Although they knew that the Heaven Expanse Sect station had been taken over mainly because Lu Ye wanted to go to the Heaven Expanse Sect to study Array Dao and the myriad Devil Ridge couldn't tolerate such a thing, they still couldn't help but be afraid. Previously, when Lu Ye was in the Shining Palace's station, if the myriad Devil Ridge had attacked them like this, the Shining Palace's station would definitely have been destroyed. By forcefully taking over the Heaven Expanse Sect station, the myriad Devil Ridge felt like they had avenged their previous humiliation. What made the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators even more excited was the news that the Jade Blood sect's Luya had been poisoned and didn't have long to live. For a time, the myriad Devil Ridge's large sects all over the Spirit Stream battlefield swept away their gloomy mood. They were just short of beating gongs and drums to celebrate. Chapter 310. A mere 8th Order Spirit Stream Realm cultivator could cause the entire Myriad Demon Ridge to fear him. Throughout history, Lu Yi was the first person to do so. Just as the entire Heaven Expanse sect was in a gloomy mood, 2 special guests arrived in a hurry. Naturally, they were the sect master of the Jade Blood sect, Tang Yifeng, and the sect seal envoy, Shui Yuan. In a large hall, the soul nurturing array was operating. This array was not too profound, but it was not enough to just set it up. It still needed to set up some soul-nurturing treasures in the array in order for the array to be able to display the effects of nurturing the soul. Treasures that could nourish the soul were all extremely precious. Even with the Heaven Expanse sect's heritage, they only had a few, and the effects were not very good. But now, they had no choice but to use this spirit array to alleviate Zhao Li and Zhu Jia's symptoms. 2 figures were placed in the spirit array. Lu Yi sat cross-legged on the side, worriedly watching Zhu Jia's situation. Heaven Expanse sect's great elder Bai Qian was also here. After all, he was the one who set up this spirit array, so he naturally had to take good care of it. Besides them, there was no one else in the hall. The dim candlelight flickered. Bai Qian sighed. "Kid, if you want to put on an act, then do it thoroughly, lest others spy on the truth." Lu Yi said, "Old Bai, do you have no confidence in your noble sex people?" "That's not it. It's just that there are too many people and too many eyes. There will always be some news that will inadvertently leak out. Then Old Bai has no confidence in the spirit array he set up." "Bullshit." Bai Qian raised his beard and said proudly, "This old master doesn't dare to say that he is the strongest in the 9 provinces, but no one in the 9 provinces can spy on the situation here through the spirit array." This little old man was actually a very kind person, but as long as spirit arrays were mentioned, he would become extremely strict, especially when it came to his attainments in spirit arrays. It could be said that he had extremely high confidence in them. If it were not for the current situation in the Heaven Expanse sect's encampment and the unresolved crisis of Zhu Jia and Zhao Li, Lu Yi would like to ask this old man for advice on spirit arrays. But with the current situation, he was not in the mood. "Quickly lie down, someone is coming," Bai Qian suddenly shouted. Lu Yi quickly laid down in the soul-nourishing array, closed his eyes, and remained motionless. The next moment, the tightly shut door of the hall was opened. Someone walked in and Yu Zhao's voice was heard. Everyone is in the soul-nurturing formation. Their lives are not in danger for now. Immediately after, Lu Yi smelled a familiar body fragrance, and then her wrist was grabbed. Lu Yi opened his eyes and saw Senior Martial Sister Shui Yuan's face. Second Senior Sister. Don't move. Shui Yuan's frosty expression softened a little, and she pressed Lu Yi down as he was about to get up. Gentle spiritual energy flowed through Lu Ye's body, checking his condition. The headmaster stood behind Shui Yuan with a worried look on his face. Although Lu Yi had sent them a message on the way here, informing them that he was fine, none of them could feel at ease before Shui Yuan investigated thoroughly. This time, Shui Yuan's investigation was extremely detailed. She only let go of Lu Ye's wrist after an entire incense stick's worth of time. Then, she walked to the side of giant armor and squatted down to examine it. Lu Yi stood up and bowed to the sect leader. Sect leader. The sect leader nodded slightly. It's good that you're fine. Since Shui Yuan didn't say anything, it meant that Lu Yi really was fine. This disciple has caused you trouble. Lu Yi was a little ashamed. The sect leader raised a hand and knocked him. Let's not talk about how this isn't any trouble. Even if you did cause trouble, so what? We old fellows are here to shelter you from the wind and rain. If we're afraid of trouble, what's the point of cultivating? In the future, do things with a clear conscience. Don't be overly cautious. Soon, Shui Yuan finished investigating Giant Armor's condition and went to check on Zhao Li. After an incense stick's worth of time, Shui Yuan stood up and frowned. It really is a poison to the soul. Before she came, Yu Xiao had given Shui Yuan the poison residue he had obtained from the trader. Combined with Giant Armor's and Zhao Li's conditions, Shui Yuan already had some guesses in her heart. Is it possible to treat them? Yu Xiao hurriedly asked. It's not a problem to treat them, but I'm afraid they won't be able to hold on. What do you mean? Their sect's medical cultivators were helpless in this situation, but Shui Yuan had come up with a treatment plan. This undoubtedly meant that Shui Yuan's medical skills were much better than the Heaven Expanse sect's medical cultivators. However, from the meaning in her words, this treatment plan clearly had very strong repercussions. Since it's a poison to the soul, then it's attached to the soul. I have the means to remove the poison from their souls, but this process will cause great damage to their souls. They're only at the spirit stream realm right now. Although they have souls, they're not strong enough. If I really treat them, their chances of survival are not high. Lu Ye's heart sank as he listened to this. This matter had arisen because of him, but in the end he, the main culprit, was completely fine, while Giant Armor and Zhao Li's lives were in danger. Yu Xiao frowned and said, Then there's no other way? Unless we give them some treasures that can strengthen their souls for a short period of time, perhaps they can survive this disaster. Treasures that can strengthen their souls. Yu Zhao's voice was bitter. Treasures that could strengthen one's soul for a short period of time were extremely precious. They could not even be bought from the Heaven's secret treasury. If there really were such treasures, he would have used them long ago. Why would he have kept them until now? Second Senior Martial Sister, Lu Yi called out. Shui Yuan turned her head and saw Lu Yi waving at her. She hurriedly walked over and was pulled to the side by Lu Yi. Lu Yi secretly took out a jade bottle from her storage pouch and handed it to her. Senior Martial Sister, take a look and see if this thing is useful. Shui Yuan took the jade bottle and did not pay it much attention. After all, Lu Yi was only a spirit stream realm cultivator. Even if she had obtained something good recently, it might not be able to catch her eye. She casually opened the jade bottle and sniffed it. In the next instant, she revealed a suspicious expression. She turned her head to look at Lu Yi, then looked at the item in the bottle, as if she was not too sure of her judgment. Sect Master, Shui Yuan turned her head and greeted. The sect master walked over, and Shui Yuan handed the jade bottle over. You're very knowledgeable. Help me take a look. You can't even recognize it? The sect master was a little surprised. He took the jade bottle and examined it a little. The hand holding the jade bottle could not help but tremble, and a shocked expression appeared on his face. It's really that thing? Shui Yuan looked at him. The sect master nodded seriously. It should be. He looked at Lu Yi. Where did you get it? Lu Yi was a mere spirit stream realm cultivator, and had been staying in the spirit stream battlefield all this time. Where did he get this kind of treasure that even spirit ocean realm cultivators would covet? Previously, I went to the Immortal Essence City and obtained it from there. Just now, when he heard Shui Yuan say that they needed a treasure that could strengthen their divine sense in a short period of time in order to save the giant armor and Zhaoli, he immediately thought of the soul cleansing water. He had also cleansed his divine sense in the soul cleansing pool, so he knew the benefits of the soul mist in the soul cleansing pool. The soul cleansing water was the condensation of the soul mist, and this thing was definitely very useful for strengthening the divine sense. The Immortal Essence City. The sect master suddenly understood. With his status, he naturally knew that the Immortal Essence City was a kind of boundless mirage realm. If there was any way for spirit stream realm cultivators to obtain this kind of treasure, it could only be in the boundless mirage realm. However, the boundless mirage realm had been opened so many times, and not many cultivators had obtained the soul cleansing water from there. However, there were rumors that some lucky cultivators had obtained a few drops from there. Even if the amount was not much, it was still a great opportunity. However, Lu Yi had taken out an entire bottle, and there were at least 30 to 40 drops. It was really a little terrifying. Is this thing useful? Lu Yi looked at Shui Yuan. Shui Yuan nodded. It is useful, but this kind of treasure, saving them is more important. Lu Yi roughly knew what his second senior sister wanted to say. He turned to look at the two people lying on the ground. Giant Armor's talent is extraordinary, and he will definitely become a great person in the future. I have already made the decision to accept him as an in-name disciple of the sect, and he will become an official disciple when he returns to Ao Mountain in the future. During this period of time, he has been following me through fire and water, and I cannot ignore him. Brother Zhao is suffering because of me. Senior sister, if this thing is really useful, feel free to use it. The sect master nodded in relief. It's rare for you to think like this. Shui Yuan, let's do as your junior brother wishes. Not far away, Yu Xiao and Bai Qian looked at each other, and their hearts and livers were scratching. Although they did not deliberately eavesdrop on the conversation of the three people from the Jade Blood sect, the Jade Blood sect did not hide anything either, so the two of them roughly heard the conversation. There were not many treasures in the world that could move the Jade Blood sect's sect master, and when they thought about Immortal Essence City and the current situation, it was self-evident what Lu Yi had taken out. Normally, when such a treasure was in front of them, even their hearts would tremble, and they would at least have some desire for it. However, they did not dare to have any strange thoughts right now. Not to mention that they were all from the Grand Heaven Alliance, and the Heaven Expanse sect and the Jade Blood sect had some relationship. Lu Yi was willing to take out such a treasure to treat Zhaoli. This was not something an ordinary person would have. Therefore, even if the two of them guessed what Lu Yi had taken out, they could only pretend that nothing had happened. Sect Master Shui Yuan turned to Yu Xiao, and her gentle voice turned cold. Ever since Lu Yi sent the message, she had been suppressing her anger on the way here, so how could she be nice to Yu Xiao? Although the Heaven Expanse sect station had been occupied by the Myriad Devil Ridge because of this matter, it was an indisputable fact that Lu Yi had been poisoned in the Heaven Expanse sect station. She did not care about the specific cause and only looked at the consequences. She had always been this protective of her own people. Senior Apprentice Sister Shui, please instruct me, Yu Xiao responded politely. I need some herbs. Prepare them in half an hour. Shui Yuan took out a jade slip and imprinted some information on it with her spirit power before handing it to Yu Xiao. I will do it myself. In order to save people, Lu Yi had even taken out such a treasure, so how could the Heaven Expanse sect not fully cooperate? This time, the station was indeed a huge loss, but it was unreasonable to blame Lu Yi. Lu Yi had only come because Zhaoli had invited him. Moreover, Lu Yi himself did not expect that his visit to the Heaven Expanse sect station would cause such a big mess. He did not want to think about these messy things for the time being. Saving people was the most important thing. Moreover, if he could really save people this time, Zhao Li would benefit from this disaster. This disciple's talent was not bad, and his future achievements might exceed expectations. Yu Zhao's heart was like a mirror. Chapter 3:11. After Yu Xiao left, Shui Yuan took out a small medicine furnace and took out a number of precious herbs, quickly turning them into a green medicinal liquid while Lu Yi acted as her assistant. Lu Yi didn't know much about pharmacology, but there were some simple things he could do. After this, come back with me and stay in the sect for a while to avoid the limelight. Lu Yi didn't say anything. Shui Yuan stopped what she was doing and stared at him intently. To be honest, when second senior sister was good to others, she was truly good to them. During her time in Blue Blood sect, Lu Yi had been taken care of by her meticulously, but when such a gentle person suddenly gave her a cold stare, Lu Yi felt a little flustered. Speak. Lu Yi had no choice but to think about it and say, Senior sister, since Myriad Demon Ridge has already targeted me, there's no point in avoiding the limelight. Unless I don't go to the Spirit Stream battlefield in the future, or hide in my sect's encampment, that's not realistic. I'm already an 8th Order cultivator, it's not appropriate for me to stay in the outer circle. That's why I asked you to come back to the sect. Senior sister, that's what I was thinking. Lu Yi leaned forward and whispered to Shui Yuan for a while, explaining his original plan. Shui Yuan listened impatiently, but after a moment, her expression eased as she understood Lu Ye's intentions. So you want to fake your death? Myriad Demon Ridge should know that I've been poisoned by now, and senior sister coming to Heaven Evolution sect with sect master is no secret. Right now, my life is in danger and I only have a few days left to live, so you and sect master can come and collect my corpse. Shui Yuan frowned slightly, feeling that his words weren't pleasant to hear. This way, Myriad Demon Ridge will no longer target me, and I can study the Spirit Array Dao here to improve my Array Dao attainments. That's a good idea. Sect Master nodded lightly to the side, wanting to express some other opinion, but after Shui Yuan glared at him, he immediately shut up. The little old man by Qian didn't have much insight and echoed from the side. If little friend Lu wants to study the Spirit Array Dao, this old master will teach him with all his heart. Heaven Evolution sect also has the 100 Array Tower. Little friend Lu can go and explore it later. That's exactly what I meant. Lu Yi quickly nodded. Senior sister, what do you think? Shui Yuan was silent for a moment. Then she said, that's a good idea. However, whether you're dead or alive, those who are related to your battlefield imprint will be able to find out. That's fine. The imprints in my battlefield imprint are either my sect's disciples or the various guardian envoys. I'll inform them in advance so that they won't leak any information. You've already thought about it, so why are you still asking me? Shui Yun said unhappily. Thank you, senior sister. But when the time comes, I'll have to ask senior sister and the headmaster to put on a show. Their most outstanding disciple had been poisoned to death in the Heaven Expanse sect. Shui Yuan and the sect master, who had come to collect the corpse, would definitely be filled with grief. It all depended on how the two of them would act when the time came. After everything was discussed properly, Yu Xiao quickly prepared the herbs that Shui Yuan needed. 2 hours later, Shui Yuan began to treat Zhao Li's injuries. The reason why she treated Zhao Li first was mainly because Zhao Li's situation was more serious. Zhu Jia had obtained some benefits from the soul cleansing pond, so his soul was much more resilient than Zhao Li's. Leaving him alone for the time being would be fine. The treatment process was a bit complicated. Shui Yuan constantly mixed various medicinal liquids and poured them down Zhao Li's throat. Then she used her own methods to extract the poison from Zhao Li's soul. Even in a coma, Zhao Li's body was trembling violently. Low groans came from his mouth as his clothes were drenched in sweat. One could imagine how difficult this treatment process would be if he was awake. After a full 2 hours, the treatment was finally over. Yu Xiao and Bai Qian looked over with concern. Zhao Li was not dead, but they could clearly feel that his aura had weakened greatly. Obviously, this kind of treatment had taken a huge toll on him. I haven't reached the Divine Sea realm yet, so some of my methods are difficult to use. There may still be some residual poison left. Whether he wakes up or not will depend on his own fortune. Many thanks, Senior Sister Shui. Yu Xiao thanked her. He knew that Shui Yuan had done her best. Shui Yuan was only a true Lake Realm 9th Order cultivator. Being able to treat injuries to the soul was due to her superb medical skills. Ordinary medical cultivators would not have such abilities. After resting for half a day, Shui Yuan did the same thing to Zhu Jia. What surprised her was that the difficulty of treating Zhu Jia was much lower than treating Zhao Li. Furthermore, Zhu Jia did not respond during the treatment process, as if he was asleep. By the time the treatment was over, this fellow was actually snoring. This made Shui Yuan lose her confidence for a moment, suspecting that she had made a mistake. She carefully checked again to make sure that giant armor was fine, and only then did she relax. Recalling Lu Ye's previous evaluation of Zhu Jia, Shui Yuan reacted. This big guy was indeed somewhat talented. After a short rest, Shui Yuan walked over to Lu Yi and handed over the jade bottle containing soul-cleansing water. She did not use many drops of soul-cleansing water to treat Zhu Jia and Zhao Li. Shui Yuan only used a total of 5 drops. This kind of treasure was extremely precious, so Shui Yuan wanted to save as much as possible. I have more. Senior sister, keep it? Lu Yi pushed it back. Shui Yuan grabbed his hand and patted the jade bottle on his palm. This thing is very precious. When you reach the true lake realm, you can slowly use it. If your soul is strong, it will be very beneficial for you to reach the spirit sea realm. At this point, Shui Yuan's eyes twitched because she saw several more bottles appear in Lu Ye's hand. I really have more. Take this bottle back. Treat it as my filial piety to you and the sect master. If there's not enough in the future, just let me know. Shui Yuan's expression became blank. She could be considered to have seen many storms, but she had never seen so much soul-cleansing water. Little junior brother said that he got it from the immortal Essence City. How could there be so much soul-cleansing water in the immortal Essence City? Others brought it out in droplets, so why was it in bottles when it was her little junior brother's turn? Then I'll keep it. After calming down her complicated mood, Shui Yuan turned and walked towards Yu Xiao. Sect Master Yu, let's begin. Yu Xiao looked at her blankly, not knowing what she was talking about. Shui Yuan's tone became cold, like the cold wind from the 9 hells. Even her eyes started to turn purple. My little junior brother only came to the Heaven Expanse sect as a guest, but now he's been poisoned to death. Sect Master Yu, are you not going to give me an explanation for this? Yu Xiao was completely confused. He turned to look at Lu Yi, who was standing at the side, looking refreshed. Senior Sister Shui, are you misunderstanding something? Little friend Lu Yi, it seems like Sect Master Yu is not going to say anything. As her voice fell, her originally petite body rapidly grew taller. Even her beautiful hair grew longer. The somewhat loose clothes on her body immediately became close-fitting, outlining her exquisite curves. Killing intent filled the air. As her hair fluttered, Shui Yuan raised her hand and a battle scythe appeared in her hand. Boom! The sealed door of the hall shattered. Yu Xiao flew out with a horrified expression. The moment Shui Yuan attacked, he thought he was going to die. Only then did he realize that the famous medical cultivator of the Jade Blood sect had such shocking battle strength. A sorrowful and angry shout resounded throughout the Heaven Expanse sect. Return my little junior brother's life. That day, the Jade Blood sect's seal envoy Shui Yuan caused a ruckus in the Heaven Expanse sect because her disciple Lu Yi was poisoned to death. She fought alone against 5 true lake stage cultivators of the Heaven Expanse sect. The aftermath of the battle destroyed dozens of pavilions and injured many disciples. Fortunately, the sect master of the Jade Blood sect, Tang Yifeng, was a reasonable person. He stepped in to stop the battle, calming the storm down. But then, the furious Shui Yuan used the Heaven Expanse sect's Heaven's Fate Pillar to kill her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield. After the Heaven Expanse sect's encampment was occupied, a large number of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were stationed there. They were all proud and arrogant. When Shui Yuan killed her way in, the group of myriad Devil Ridge cultivators were stunned. None of the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators could withstand a single blow from the enormous battle scythe. Enduring the punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder, Shui Yuan killed dozens of people in the Heaven Expanse Sect's encampment, causing the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators to tremble in fear. When she retreated, none of the thousands of cultivators dared to stop her. When the news spread, the world was shocked. It was the second time. This was the second time the Jade Blood Sect's Seal Envoy had killed her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield. The last time she killed her way into the Spirit Stream battlefield, it was pardonable. After all, it was the myriad Devil Ridge who broke the rules first. But this time? Although the myriad Devil Ridge's methods were despicable, they were all within the rules. Since they were enemies, they would naturally do anything within the rules. What right did she have? Just because her own disciple was poisoned to death? This was completely unreasonable. Lu Ye had killed a lot of people recently, hadn't he? If everyone did this in the future, wouldn't the Spirit Stream battlefield be a mess? How could those cultivators with low cultivation survive on the battlefield? For a moment, the myriad Devil Ridge was filled with curses and accusations, but that was it. Shui Yuan could act so fearlessly because she had a special method to nullify the punishment of the soul-extinguishing divine thunder. If the powerful cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge were to actually lower their cultivation and kill their way into the Spirit Stream battlefield to bully the weak, they really did not have the courage to do so. The Seal Master of the Jade Blood Sect did not pose much of a threat to the myriad Devil Ridge. After all, she was only a woman. She had chosen to do something irrational in her anger. At most, she would kill a few dozen people. It was just a small fight that was not worth mentioning. However, the sect master of the Jade Blood Sect was different. According to the rumors, after the Heaven Expanse Sect's main sect left, the old bastard Tang Yifeng directly killed his way into the Thunder Plain that bordered the Mist Province. Fortunately, the myriad Devil Ridge was already prepared. Several Divine Sea Realm cultivators worked together and chased Tang Yifeng away, preventing him from causing any damage to the sects in the Thunder Plain. It was not that the myriad Devil Ridge could predict the future, but they had learned from the mistakes of the past. After the Battle of Golden Light Peak last time, Tang Yifeng had killed his way into the Cloud Plain and destroyed the three great sects of the myriad Devil Ridge by himself, causing them to suffer heavy losses. The Jade Blood Sect had already become extremely protective. After poisoning Lu Ye this time, how could the powerful cultivators of the myriad Devil Ridge not be prepared? Chapter 312. Sure enough, Tang Yifeng killed his way into the Thunder Province. Although he was forced to retreat by the myriad Demon Ridge's powerhouses, he clearly didn't plan on stopping there. He continued to wander around the border between the Thunder Province and the Mist Province, waiting for a good opportunity. This gave the myriad Demon Ridge a huge headache. You could be a thief for 1,000 days, but how could you guard against a thief for 1,000 days? This was especially true for a powerhouse like Tang Yifeng. Once he started to act shamelessly, the myriad Demon Ridge really couldn't do anything about it, unless they could find a way to surround him and kill him in a single stroke. But who was Tang Yifeng? He was far from being a wily old fox. Wanting to surround him was simply a fool's dream. Just as the Jade Blood Sect's sect master was stirring up trouble in the Thunder Province by himself, the core area of the Spirit Stream battlefield became lively. Li Baxian had come out to cause trouble. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, there was a list that the heavenly secrets of the Spirit Stream battlefield was fair. It was the Spirit Stream list, and was the most authoritative list. That was because there were no artificial factors involved in the list. It was a list that the heavenly secrets of the Spirit Stream battlefield automatically generated and ranked based on the strength a cultivator had displayed in battle. This list changed very frequently, as it was impossible for a cultivator to stay in the Spirit Stream realm for a long time after reaching the peak. At most, they would accumulate strength for a period of time, and when the time was right, they would choose to break through to the Cloud River realm. Li Baxian was previously ranked 10th, and was the only 8th order heaven-grade cultivator on the Spirit Stream list. The others were all 9th order. But now, he was ranked 3rd on the Spirit Stream list. This wasn't just because someone had broken through to the Cloud River realm, but also because he had never shown his strength in front of others. After the battle with Yan Xing, who was ranked second on the spirit stream list, he could no longer hide his true strength. Now, looking at the top 3 of the spirit stream list, the geniuses of the various sects on the spirit stream battlefield all expressed that they were suffering. That was because these 3 bastards were old foxes who had been in the spirit stream realm for more than a decade. How could the rising stars compare to them in terms of foundation? It was said that those who were ranked on the spirit stream list would receive benefits. Moreover, these benefits were bestowed by the heavens. As for what kind of benefits they were, it wasn't clear, as many people received different benefits. But what was certain was that the higher one's ranking was, the more benefits they would receive. However, since the 3 of them had been on the list for 3 years, no matter how high their ranking was, there was no benefit at all. The 3 of them had occupied the top 3 spots on the spirit stream list for so long that even heavenly fate couldn't stand it anymore. He treated them as if they didn't exist, and didn't pay any attention to them when he gave them benefits. In addition to the spirit stream list, which was an authoritative list created by Heaven's will, there were also lists that cultivators made in private, such as the Hidden Dragon list, the spirit stream list of beauties, and so on. One of them was the Free Cloud and Wild Crane list, which evaluated those powerful cultivators. The evaluation criteria for being on the list were the number of enemies a cultivator had recently killed, the number of battles they had fought, and the degree of threat they posed to other cultivators. Before the Battle of Golden Light Summit, Li Baxian was at the top of the Free Cloud and Wild Crane list. He had sat there for many years and no one could shake his position. This was because he was a lazy fish. He spent all his time in Pillheart Sect's encampment like a girl who was too ashamed to see others. He did not step out of the house at all. Although he was the vice-guardian of Pillheart Sect in name, even the disciples of Pillheart Sect rarely saw him. However, after the Battle of Golden Light Summit, this person who had been at the top of the list for many years had his ranking plummeted. He had even slipped to the bottom of the list. Until this time, his name was removed from the Free Cloud and Wild Crane list. Because of the chaos he had caused in the core regions, Li Baxian was now like a burly man who had not seen a girl for decades. Every day, he would be as energetic as a dragon and ferocious as a tiger, going around killing the myriad Devil Ridge cultivators who were alone. With his strength as the 3rd on the Spirit Stream list, who in the core regions could be a match for him? This had already led to several big battles. Such a belligerent person was naturally not qualified to be included in the Free Cloud and Wild Crane list. However, in the years that Li Baxian and Feng Yuechan had been overseeing Pillheart Sect's encampment, it could be said that Pillheart Sect's encampment was impregnable. No one dared to provoke them. Li Baxian's change was naturally because Lu Ye had been poisoned to death. This was something that everyone was well aware of. In Jade Blood Sect's encampment, the door to the cultivation room opened. Hua Si, who had been cultivating in seclusion for several days, walked out and stretched. Ruan Lingyu was standing outside waiting for her. Seeing Lingyu, Hua Si asked curiously, "Why are you here?" Lingyu took a few steps forward and grabbed Hua Si's hand. She said seriously, "Sister Hua Si, I have something to tell you. Please don't be agitated." Hua Si tilted her head. Ruan Lingyu looked around and then whispered in Hua Si's ear, "Lu Yi was poisoned to death." Hua Si's body suddenly stiffened. Ruan Lingyu suddenly felt her hands turn cold. Knowing that something was wrong, she hurriedly added, "He faked his death. Lu Yi is actually fine." I asked second senior sister. She said that the Myriad Devil Ridge is watching Lu Yi, so he used this method to temporarily escape from the Myriad Devil Ridge's line of sight. Second senior sister also said that there are too many people in our encampment now, so don't expose yourself. The reason she had been waiting here was to tell Hua Si the news as soon as possible. Otherwise, Hua Si would not be able to accept it immediately after hearing it from others. At that time, she might reveal some flaws. After hearing Ruan Lingyu's words, Hua Si felt her mood fluctuate violently. She raised her hand and tapped on her battlefield imprint. Sure enough, Lu Ye's imprint did not disappear. She was still worried, so she sent a message out. After receiving a reply, she was relieved. However, her expression did not change. She even fell to the ground weakly. Her eyes immediately turned red and tears flowed from her eyes. Sister Hua Si. Ruan Lingyu was frightened. She had already said that Lu Yi faked his death. Why was her reaction so big? If Lu Yi were here, he would definitely praise Hua Si's acting skills. Half a day later, in a secluded place in the encampment of the Jade Blood sect, Hua Si gathered some of the sect's core members. Burning paper money, the fire burned fiercely. Hua Si threw paper money into the fire while crying silently. Chen Yu, Kong Niu, Gu Yang, Hixin, Zhu Wenba, In Haoren, and Luo Qixing were all pulled here. Their expressions were very strange. They had all been notified in advance and knew that Lu Yi was not dead. However, Hua Si's eyes were swollen from crying, so they did not know whether Lu Yi was dead or not. All of you cry? Hua Si, who was burning paper money, ordered softly. They looked at each other. Chen Yu was the first to cry bitterly. Fifth senior brother, you died so tragically. One after another, cries and shouts sounded. Gu Yang cried and burned paper money while muttering, "My soul has returned, my soul has returned." Hixin wanted to laugh, but Hua Si glared at her. Hixin immediately gave in. She rubbed her eyes with both hands and looked like a weeping beauty. From afar, Feng Yu watched this scene and could not help but cheer. The heavens were good, and good and evil would be repaid. Ever since she was kidnapped by Lu Yi and cheated of a few thousand merit points, Feng Yu had remained in the Blue Blood sect. She could not return to the Feng family. The Feng family's base had been lost in her hands, and as the guardian, she had to bear a great responsibility. If she returned to the Feng family, even if she was not executed, she would only end up as a chess piece in a marriage alliance. She would be married off to another cultivation family, with no future to speak of. This was a result she absolutely could not accept. She was, after all, the guardian. How could she just accept her fate like this? Although she did not have a status in the Blue Blood sect, because of her identity as a medical cultivator, the people in the Blue Blood sect treated her very well. The resources distributed by the sect were never short of her. Over the past few days, her strength had improved. The only thing that troubled her was her merit points. She was now an 8th order cultivator, about to reach the 9th order. Without enough merit points, she could not buy a heaven-grade secret art. Thinking of the 4,000 merit points she had donated, Feng Yu felt wronged. She had saved them to buy a secret art. Fortunately, that hateful Luya had been poisoned to death. In the future, Hua Si would be in charge of the Blue Blood sect. Feng Yu's mood immediately became much better. In the Mist Province, the main Heaven Expanse sect was shrouded in gloom. The atmosphere was solemn. The Heaven Expanse sect had suffered tremendous losses from the invasion of their station. Although the myriad Demon Ridge cultivators had retreated after Shui Yuan's rampage, rebuilding their station was not a simple matter. At the very least, they had to accumulate enough merit points to set up a defensive array before they could consider anything else. Moreover, in order to guard against any ambushes from myriad Demon Ridge, the Heaven Expanse sect had forbidden their disciples from entering the Spirit Stream battlefield. Even the main Spirit Array had been activated, isolating the sect from the outside world. The current Heaven Expanse sect could be said to be completely sealed off. Outsiders could not enter, and those inside could not leave. Even news could not be transmitted. This clearly had something to do with the seal envoy of the Blue Blood sect causing a ruckus. This caused the entire Heaven Expanse sect to criticize the Blue Blood sect. Lu Ye being poisoned to death was not something they wanted to see. The seal envoy of the Blue Blood sect causing a ruckus in the main Heaven Expanse sect was truly rather unreasonable. It was said that the battle had injured the Great Elder, Bai Qian. He was currently recuperating quietly. Lu Yi, Giant Armor, and Zhao Li were all settled in Bai Qian's residence. After Shui Yuan's treatment, Giant Armor and Zhao Li both woke up one after another. Giant Armor was fine, but Zhao Li was extremely weak. However, since he could wake up, it meant he was fine. The True Lake Realm female medical cultivator had carefully examined Zhao Li's condition and confirmed that there was no poison remaining in his body. His current weakness was only the aftereffects of Shui Yuan's treatment. He only needed to recuperate for a while before he recovered. This made Yu Xiao and everyone else stop worrying. In the library, Lu Yi ended his conversation with his second senior sister. His thoughts were scattered. The development of the situation was completely different from what he had originally imagined. He had told his second senior sister before that he wanted her and the sect master to put on a show together. Originally, he only wanted the two of them to express their grief, but never did he expect his second senior sister to actually attack Xiao. When he saw Zhao's reaction back then, he was clearly very confused, so he ended up fighting his second senior sister in a daze. Chapter 313. Yu Zhao's reaction was also extremely fast. Even though Shui Yuan didn't inform him beforehand, when Shui Yuan shouted, "Give me back my junior brother's life," Yu Xiao could see through Shui Yuan's intentions. With a strange mood, he cooperated with Shui Yuan's act. The 4 true lake stage cultivators who rushed over were really unaware of this, so the battle was extremely realistic. It wasn't over yet. After the respected sect master came out to mediate, Shui Yuan's anger couldn't be quelled and she charged into the spirit stream battlefield. She was like this, and the sect master was even worse. He ran to the Thunder Continent, which was the territory of the Myriad Devil Ridge. 4th senior brother also became active in the spirit stream battlefield. Shui Yuan had already returned to the Jade Blood sect and the sect master was also on his way back. There was no other way. The Thunder Continent's defenses were impenetrable and the sect master couldn't find a chance to attack. The Grand Heaven Alliance master also personally sent a message to the sect master, asking him to calm down and not to take the risk alone. The sect master took advantage of the situation and retreated from the Thunder Continent. As for 4th senior brother, the Pill Heart sect reprimanded him and then grounded him in the encampment. Without orders, he couldn't leave. After a few days, the incident of Jade Blood sect's Lu Ye being poisoned to death finally calmed down. In the grand scheme of the cultivation world of the 9 states, Lu Yi was just a small cultivator at the spirit stream realm. The Myriad Devil Ridge feared him because of the ability he displayed to break the formation. Now that he was dead, there was no need for the Myriad Devil Ridge to cause any more trouble. On Lu Ye's side, many guardian envoys and deputy envoys of the various sects sent messages asking whether he was dead or not. Others didn't know, but those who had added him as a friend knew clearly. This matter couldn't be hidden from these people. Moreover, these guardian envoys were the pillars of their respective sections. They had clean backgrounds and naturally wouldn't leak the news. Lu Yi didn't explain too much and only said that he had no choice. These people weren't stupid and could roughly understand what Lu Yi meant. Recently, all the major sects in the 9 prefectures were investigating their own disciples to prevent similar incidents from happening again. This investigation caused a large loss of spies from both sides. This could be considered a side effect of this incident. Another message came from the battlefield imprint. Lu Yi checked and found that it was from Hua Ci. "Today is the 7th day of your death. What do you want? I'll burn it for you." Lu Yi expressionlessly shifted his gaze away, stood up, and walked towards Bai Qian's room. This time, Lu Yi had been invited to the Sky Expanse sect's encampment to further his understanding of Array Dao. Because the Sky Expanse sect had the geographical advantage of the 100 Formation Pagoda, many of its disciples were proficient in Array Dao. However, it was hard to say how proficient they were. In the entire Sky Expanse sect, the person with the highest attainments in Array Dao was undoubtedly Grand Elder Bai Qian. Even Sect Master Yu Xiao couldn't compare to him. Therefore, Lu Yi had been learning Array Dao from Bai Qian these days. With Lu Yi taking out such a treasure to treat Zhao Li first, Bai Qian naturally didn't hold anything back when teaching him. This allowed Lu Yi to reap great benefits, and his attainments in the Dao of formations rose steadily. The reason why he wanted to cultivate the Array Dao with Bai Qian was because it would be easier for him to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda if his attainments in the Array Dao increased. After a round of guidance, Bai Qian discovered that Lu Yi was extremely talented in the Dao of formations. However, when he thought of Lu Ye's background as a spirit rune master, this was also normal. Array cultivators were considered a branch of spirit rune masters. Lu Yi had built a good foundation under Madame Yun, so he naturally cultivated the Tao of formations with half the effort. What Bai Qian was particularly concerned about was that Lu Yi had an unimaginably sharp eyesight when it came to breaking formations. No matter what kind of formation it was, as long as he observed it for a while, he would be able to find the flaws. This was simply an ability that array cultivators yearned for even in their dreams. If they wanted to break a formation, they first had to find the flaws and nodes of the formation. If they couldn't do this, they couldn't even think of breaking the formation. Bai Qian initially thought that this was Lu Ye's talent, but after a few days of observation, he discovered that something was amiss and asked about the doubts in his heart. Lu Yi didn't hide it from him. "Elder Bai, do you know about insight spirit runes?" "Of course I do." A formation Dao grandmaster like Bai Qian was also proficient in some spirit runes. However, those spirit runes were all biased towards the Tao of formations. He knew about insight spirit runes, but he wasn't proficient in constructing them. It was already considered good if he could succeed in 1 out of 10 attempts. Some restrictions in spirit tools used to detect the environment and investigate the enemy's situation used this spirit rune as the core. By constructing insight spirit runes in my eyes, I can see the truth and falsehood of the formation. Bai Qian stared at Lu Yi in a daze, as if he felt that Lu Yi was joking. However, when he thought about Lu Ye's performance when breaking the formation, he knew that this wasn't a joke. This young man before him had really constructed insight spirit runes in his eyes. "I see." Bai Qian nodded slightly and sighed. "Young man, you dare to think and dare to do it. You're indeed amazing." Constructing spirit runes in the eyes was simply too bold. Don't do this too frequently. If an accident happens, the consequences will be unimaginable. Bai Qian warned seriously. Although Lu Yi wasn't a disciple of the Sky Expanse sect, he had displayed extremely high talent in the Tao of formations. Bai Qian was someone who valued talent, which was why he gave such advice. It was simply too dangerous. The degree of danger of constructing insight spirit runes in the eyes wasn't inferior to constructing spirit-gathering spirit runes in the spirit cavities. Since ancient times, there had been so many spirit rune masters who had studied it from generation to generation. It was impossible that Lu Yi was the only one who was smart. The spirit rune masters of the previous generation had also thought of constructing spirit-gathering spirit runes in the spirit cavities to increase the efficiency of cultivation. They had also thought of constructing spirit-gathering spirit runes in the eyes to see secrets that couldn't be seen by the naked eye. However, no one dared to do so. No matter how outstanding a spirit rune master was, they couldn't guarantee that they would succeed when constructing spirit runes. At the same time, the smaller the spirit runes constructed, the more difficult it would be. If the construction failed accidentally, the spirit energy would go berserk. If such a situation happened, the spirit cavities would be damaged and the eyes would be blinded. Therefore, this idea only existed in theory. No one dared to do it. Even a spirit rune master like Madame Yun didn't have the confidence to succeed. Lu Yi was different. There was no possibility of failure when he activated the spirit runes on the talent tree. Therefore, he could be unrestrained. If he had learned the insight spirit runes from a book, he wouldn't have dared to do so. He could feel Bai Qian's concern, but he couldn't explain it. Moreover, when he had been cultivating with Bai Qian recently, he would first use his own ability to observe the flaws of the formation. After making some judgments, he would activate the insight spirit runes to verify them. Sometimes he would make the right judgment, and sometimes he would make the wrong judgment. He could learn from this to improve his experience in breaking formations. Since Bai Qian had already warned him, it was up to Lu Yi whether he would listen or not. Bai Qian didn't say anything else. He waved his hand and a small flag appeared in his hand. "Today, let's talk about the formation flag and the formation base." Lu Yi hurriedly sat up straight. Days passed. During the day, he would cultivate at Senior Bai's place. At night, he would cultivate by himself. At the same time, he would study the books he had brought from Madame Yun to verify what he had learned. Senior Bai's place was extremely quiet because he had a very high status in Heaven Expanse sect. Although he wasn't the sect master, even Yu Shao had to greet him as a disciple. Therefore, no one discovered Lu Yi and the others hiding here. Moreover, it was rumored that Bai Qian had been injured by the aftermath of the Blue Blood sect's sealing envoy's rampage. Every day, the sect's medical cultivators would come to treat Senior Bai. At this time, no one dared to disturb him. Zhu Jia meditated and cultivated all day. Although the cultivation environment here wasn't as good as the Spirit Stream battlefield, he didn't waste any time. Zhao Li's condition was also improving day by day. Moreover, after being treated by the soul-cleansing water, the potential benefits were slowly showing. Zhao Li noticed some changes these days. His control over spirit power seemed to have improved, and his perception had also improved significantly. This made him puzzled. He had escaped death, so how could he have profited from a disaster? However, every time he thought about the encampment being captured, he felt an unbearable pain. No matter the reason, Heaven Expanse sect's encampment was lost in his hands. This was an indisputable fact. That night, Lu Yi was reading and cultivating when Yi suddenly floated in through the window and shouted in a panic, "Lu Yi, Lu Yi." Lu Yi looked up at her. Yi said, "I don't know what Zhu Jia and Hu Per are doing. You should go and take a look." A moment later, Lu Yi followed Yi to a protruding rock. Below this rock was a pitch-black cliff. At this moment, the moon was high in the sky, and the cold moonlight scattered down. On the rock in front of them, Giant Armor and Hu Po were both lying on all fours on the ground. Their heads were raised high, sometimes looking up, sometimes looking down. Strangely, moonlight was gathering above their heads, and as the man and beast breathed, it was sucked into their stomachs. The moonlight was like a transparent, pure white ribbon that danced lightly. From afar, it looked like a bridge made of moonlight had appeared between heaven and earth. As Zhu Jia and Hu Po breathed in and out, their bodies were covered in a layer of faint fluorescent light. Lu Yi raised his eyebrows. "Are they okay?" he asked. "When did it start?" "A few days ago." Lu Yi was usually cultivating and reading at night, so he didn't know what was going on outside. However, Yi and Hu Po always had a constant connection, so Yi would know if anything happened to Hu Po. Ever since a few days ago, Giant Armor would come here at night, and Hu Po would follow as well. At first, Giant Armor would just sit here and cultivate, and there was nothing wrong with him. He thought that he was bored in the house, so he wanted a change of environment. But since 3 days ago, something was not quite right. Zhu Jia, who usually meditated and cultivated without moving like a statue, was twisting here and there for some reason, as if he was uncomfortable. He went through many different positions and finally found this strange position. Hu Po learned from him. At this moment, the man and beast would sometimes raise their heads and breathe in, and sometimes lower their heads and exhale. Their movements were extremely synchronized, and as they breathed in and out, the fluorescent light on their bodies began to flicker. Chapter 3:14. Are they all right? He was a little worried. Although she didn't sense anything abnormal from Hu Po, and Hu Po's strength had even increased rapidly in the past few days, the source of her worry was this unknown. Absorbing the essence of the sun and moon is a monster's instinct. A voice suddenly came from the side. Lu Yi and Yi hurriedly turned around and bowed together. "Elder Bai." Bai Qian had followed them at some point, obviously noticing the abnormality here. "Elder Bai, do you mean that Giant Armor is a monster cultivator?" Lu Yi recalled Giant Armor's strange inner core. In the past, he had also suspected that Giant Armor was a monster cultivator, but it turned out that Giant Armor was human and had nothing to do with monster cultivators. Moreover, monster cultivators didn't have inner cores, only monsters had them. After monster cultivators took human form, their cultivation method was no different from humans. But now, it seemed that his judgment wasn't too accurate. One of his ancestors should be a monster cultivator, perhaps he inherited some monster cultivator bloodline. But the bloodline of monster cultivators gets thinner and thinner, so there shouldn't be such signs of atavism. Elder Bai clearly didn't quite understand. "However, little friend Yi, these two companions of yours are worth nurturing with great effort. Although absorbing the essence of the sun and moon is an instinct of monstrous beasts, not all monstrous beasts have such an ability. Those that are able to use this method to cultivate themselves are all monstrous beasts with unique bloodlines. From Elder Bai's words, it could be seen that he thought highly of giant armor and Hoopa. Hoopa needn't be mentioned. Apart from Hoopa, Lu Yi had never heard of a tiger-type monster that could transform into a puppet spirit. Moreover, it didn't suffer any side effects from consuming spirit pills to cultivate. Not only that, Hoopa could even eat spirit stones directly. This was something that Lu Yi couldn't do. Giant armor was naturally gifted, and Lu Yi was very optimistic about his future. Now that he had displayed such a strange ability, perhaps it was as Elder Bai said, that giant armor's ancestor had a great background. But Elder Bai, giant armor has never displayed such talent before. Why has he recently? Bai Qian chuckled and raised his hand to tap his head. Don't forget that he was poisoned by a spirit poison a few days ago and was unconscious for a few days. Perhaps he awakened something because of that. Lu Yi nodded. This was an explanation. I'm getting old and my energy is lacking. I'm going to rest first. Bai Qian turned around and coughed a few times. Then he walked towards his residence. Lu Yi snickered in his heart. Although he understood the meaning behind his words, he did not intend to continue the conversation. He said to Yi, "Send Elder Bai off." Yi hurriedly responded. A moment later, Yi returned. She stood beside Lu Yi and whispered, "Lu Yi, do you think Senior Bai is right?" "In what way?" "Elder Bai said that giant armor awakened something because he was poisoned. Elder Bai naturally has his own judgment. No wonder I felt that giant beetle was weird these days. It didn't talk much to begin with, and now it's even quieter. It looks even more foolish than before." Giant armor isn't dumb. Lu Yi raised his hand and knocked on her head. Giant armor was just dumb, but it didn't mean that he was stupid. He hugged her head with both hands and pouted. "All right, don't worry about them," said Lu Yi. Then he returned to his residence and continued to read and cultivate. The Tao of formations was broad and profound. Even someone like Elder Bai did not dare to say that he had a complete understanding of formations. This was the same as the Tao of spirit runes. It was something that could be learned endlessly. It was impossible for Lu Yi to learn everything about array Tao in a short time. Fortunately, Elder Bai knew what Lu Yi wanted to do. Therefore, what he imparted to him these days was basically all his experience in breaking formations. These experiences were all Elder Bai's own experiences, and he would not easily impart them to others. Lu Yi's improvement in formations undoubtedly made Elder Bai very satisfied. He had taught so many disciples in the Sky Expanse sect over the years, but none of them could understand it as quickly as Lu Yi. Sometimes, Elder Bai felt that it was a pity. If Lu Yi was from the Sky Expanse sect, he would definitely be able to bring the Sky Expanse sect to greater heights with his talent in formations. This was also one of the reasons why Elder Bai did not hide anything and imparted everything to him. He could not bear to see such an unpolished gem being buried. After a month, a voice sounded from Elder Bai's residence. "I know that your ambition is not in formations. The purpose of studying formations is to break those great defensive formations. With your current attainments, you should be able to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda. I can't teach you much anymore. However, there is no end to formations. If you have the time in the future, you can more or less spend some time on it." "Yes," replied Lu Yi respectfully. "After you go back tonight, think about what kind of formation flags you need to make. Tomorrow, I will bring you to make the formation flags. When everything is ready, you can challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda." When Lu Yi first heard about the 100 Formation Pagoda from Zhao Li, he thought that he could challenge it directly. However, after cultivating for a month with Elder Bai, he slowly realized that things were not as simple as he thought. Although it was possible to challenge it directly, it would not be efficient. If he had the help of suitable formation flags, it would greatly improve his ability to break formations and set up formations. "Thank you, Elder Bai." As Lu Yi spoke, he took out a jade bottle from his storage bag and pushed it in front of Elder Bai. "Elder Bai, thank you for teaching me for so many days. This disciple has nothing to repay you with. Please accept this small token of my appreciation." The jade bottle was naturally filled with soul-cleansing water. However, it was not a full bottle, but 8 drops. This was not something Lu Yi had done on a whim. This was something the sect master had instructed him to do. After learning that Elder Bai had personally taught Lu Yi, the sect master had told Lu Yi to prepare this gift. The number of 8 drops was also decided by the sect master. Because the Heaven Expanse sect was so proficient in formations, there was no need for Elder Bai to personally teach Lu Yi. Any Cloud River tier cultivator would be enough. Elder Bai had stepped forward because the Jade Blood sect and the Heaven Expanse sect were somewhat related. Secondly, Zhao Li had been saved by Shui Yuan. However, this was not the main reason. The main reason was that Lu Yi had soul-cleansing water. He could not directly ask for it, nor could he make a deal with Lu Yi. He might as well take care of his own matters first. Since Lu Yi had taken out soul-cleansing water to save Zhao Li, he was obviously not a heartless person. If he taught him formations, how could Lu Yi not repay him? As a Spirit Stream tier cultivator, if he wanted to repay a Soul Ascension tier cultivator, the only thing he could offer was soul-cleansing water. This was Bai Qian's secret plan, and it was understandable. When the sect master heard that the person teaching Lu Yi was actually Bai Qian, he immediately saw through his intentions. That was why he had instructed Lu Yi in advance. That night, Lu Yi had been led by Yi to watch the giant shell and who absorbed the essence of the moon. Before Bai Qian left, he had muttered something about his old age and lack of energy. If the sect master had not warned him in advance, Lu Yi would not have thought anything of it. However, with the sect master's warning, how could he not know that it was a hint from Bai Qian? Although he was old, his cultivation was still there. How could he lack energy after taking a few steps at night? Looking at the jade bottle in front of him, Bai Qian's heart could not help but skip a beat. He chuckled and said, "Then this old master will accept it." The next day, under Bai Qian's lead, Lu Yi followed him to Tian Yen sect's weapon forging workshop. This place was one of the sect's most important places. The weapon forging workshop was usually bustling with people. After Tian Yen sect's disciples reached a certain level of cultivation in the Spirit Array Dao, they would come here to refine their own array bases and array flags. However, today this place was deserted, and the usually bustling weapon forging workshop was nowhere to be seen. This was naturally Bai Qian's handiwork, mainly to prevent the fact that Lu Yi was still alive from being exposed. The weaponsmithing workshop was located 1,000 feet below a spirit mountain. There was a wooden lift that led straight underground. As Bai Qian stood on the lift that led straight down, Lu Yi looked around and saw many interlocking gears. These should have been made by Yensher. The lower they went, the hotter the environment became. Once they reached 1,000 meters, the surrounding environment was enough to make any mortal retreat. Underground, large and small spaces had been opened up by Tian Yen sect, and from these spaces, waves of heat constantly poured out. Following Bai Qian, the two of them walked all the way to the innermost cave and came to a weapon forging platform. It was 10 meters long and 10 meters wide. There was a place for hammering blanks, and there were many molds of different shapes inlaid on it. Judging from the shapes of the molds, it was obvious that this weapon forging platform could not only be used to forge array flags and array bases. There were also many tools for forging weapon forging tools placed on the side. In front of the weapon forging platform was a furnace, from which waves of heat were still pouring out. Does Tian Yen sect know how to refine spirit artifacts? Lu Yi looked at the molds on the weapon forging platform. Bai Qian chuckled, "Disciples consume a lot of energy in their cultivation, so they need some income to maintain themselves. Our sect has some artifact refiners, but the spirit artifacts they refine aren't too high grade, so they can barely make a living." Saying so, he took off his robes and casually threw them to the side, revealing his muscular upper body. The corners of Lu Ye's eyes twitched. Looking at this vigorous appearance, he actually said that he didn't have enough energy that night. "Since you want to break the formation, then let's refine some formation flags. I'll refine one first, and you can observe from the side." As Bai Qian spoke, he grabbed a hammer used to forge weapons from the side. The hammer didn't look big, but it was obviously very heavy. However, the little old man Bai Qian held it in his hand as if it was weightless. In order to refine weapons, one must first have fire. For someone like you, who is a fire elemental cultivator and cultivates a fire elemental cultivation method, you have an innate advantage in this aspect. But there will always be some people who don't have the same conditions as you. What if they want to forge weapons? Then we can only rely on external fire. The reason why our sex weapon forging workshop is located here is because there is earth fire here. Through the formation, we can borrow some of it. As Elder Bai spoke, he activated the fire-drawing array he had set up here. Soon, the cave became even hotter. Visible flames surged up from below, burning the furnace until it was bright red. Looking at the earth fire, Lu Ye's heart skipped a beat. He could feel that his talent tree could absorb the power of the earth fire. Moreover, he had bought many earth core fires from the Tianji treasury before, so the feeling the earth fire gave him was very similar to the earth core fire. The two should have the same origin. However, in terms of quality, the earth fire Elder Bai activated was much worse than the earth fire Lu Yi bought from the Tianji treasury. Chapter 315. Lu Yi naturally wouldn't stimulate his innate skill tree to absorb the power of the earth fire here. Bai Qian had kindly brought him here to make array flags, so if he really did that, it would be too outrageous. That would be digging into someone else's corner. The furnace quickly turned red. Bai Qian raised his hand and threw a metal ingot into the furnace while testing Lu Yi. How do you usually choose the materials to make array flags and array bases? Usually, we have to choose a light and sturdy metal. At the same time, it has to be extremely conductive to spiritual power. Honeycomb steel and black iron are the most commonly used materials. In addition, if there is a need, the flag can also be refined from some demonic beast skin. Lu Yi recalled Bai Qian's previous teachings and spoke frankly. Bai Qian nodded with satisfaction and asked a few more questions, to which Lu Yi quickly answered. Theories are just theories in the end. You need to grasp these theories and have the ability to realize them. Otherwise, it will just be an armchair strategist. The metal ingot that Bai Qian had thrown into the furnace quickly turned into a flowing liquid. He activated his spirit power and raised his hand to grab it. The red and hot liquid was immediately grabbed by him. Under the control of his spirit power, the liquid immediately transformed into the shape of the formation flag. When you have enough control over your spirit power, you can refine array flags without the help of external forces. If you can't do it, you can use molds. Saying so, he placed the hot liquid into a mold pit on the weapon forging platform, which was the mold for the array flag. After cooling down a little, Bai Qian took out the rough base of the array flag, grabbed the hammer, and smashed it down. Under the hammer, Lu Yi seemed to hear a series of hammering sounds, but the many strikes were connected together, making it difficult for him to distinguish between what was real and what was fake. Regardless of whether it is refining formation flags or spiritual weapons, one needs to have extremely strong control over one's own strength. The biggest reason why formation flags and spiritual weapons can be used is because of the restriction imprinted on them. Without the restriction, no matter how precious the material is, it is only an empty shell. Outstanding refiners can change the internal structure of the spiritual weapon during the process of weapon forging to form the restriction imprinted on it. It can even be said that some refiners can use one material to forge weapon blanks and another material to forge the restriction. By combining the two into one, the power of the spiritual weapon will be even stronger. However, that requires very profound skills. This old man has no talent in this field, so I can't do such a thing. Along with Bai Qian's words, there were also sounds of hammering. Lu Yi observed carefully and discovered that at the instant Bai Qian hammered, the hammer would tremble violently. This was why there were so many hammering sounds. With the augmentation of the Insight Spirit inscriptions, Lu Yi could see even more clearly. It was just as Bai Qian had said. As he hammered, the internal structure of the soldier billet changed slightly, forming layers of restrictions. That's why this old master said that for someone like you who is a fire elemental cultivator, those who cultivate fire elemental cultivation methods will have a unique advantage in weapon forging and artifact forging. Once your skills are profound in the future, you won't need to rely on external objects to refine anything you want in the air. You'll also be able to use many techniques as you please. However, your cultivation is still low, so don't think about these things. Clanging sounds continued to resound. In less than half an hour, a small and exquisite array flag that was only the size of a palm came out of the furnace. The array flag was only a carrier, and the restrictions inside the array flag were the key. Depending on the restrictions, the array flag could play a different role. However, a single array flag was useless. Different array flags had to cooperate with each other to set up and break the array. After observing it from beginning to end, Lu Yi found that it was not difficult to forge the array flag. It could be said that as long as there was a mold, he could casually make a rough array flag. It didn't matter if it was ugly. The difficult part was creating the restrictions inside the array flag. This was different from him using his own spiritual power to construct spirit inscriptions. He had great control over his spiritual power. It was not difficult for him to construct spirit inscriptions that he learned from books. However, with the help of a hammer, he had to create spirit inscriptions to form restrictions. Moreover, he had to form them inside the array flag. This was extremely difficult. Give it a try. Bai Qian instructed. Lu Yi nodded. Seeing it 10 times was not as good as seeing it with his own hands. Bai Qian had already shown him how to make array flags once. Although he did not really understand Bai Qian's method of making array flags, this kind of thing could only be understood through practice. Lu Yi took a metal ingot from Bai Qian and threw it into the furnace. He waited for it to turn into liquid before wrapping it with his spirit energy and placing it in a mold. After it cooled down a bit, Lu Yi grabbed a hammer from the side. Recalling Bai Qian's technique, he swung the hammer down. 2 rhythmic clanging sounds rang out. As Lu Yi hammered, his spiritual power began to surge. It's just the beginning. Don't be too anxious. First, you have to learn how to use hammering to imbue your spiritual power into the array flag. Then, you can use your spiritual power to change the internal structure of the array flag. Only then can you construct spirit inscriptions inside the array flag and form restrictions. Bai Qian carefully taught from the side. Asterisk clang 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 clang. Asterisk Lu Yi was sweating profusely. Bai Qian would give him pointers from time to time. Every time, his pointers were on the key points, allowing Lu Yi to clearly understand his shortcomings. He failed again and again. Fortunately, this practice didn't cause any waste of materials. If he broke the array flag, he could just throw it into the furnace and continue forging. The soul-cleansing water he gave Bai Qian had undoubtedly played a role. Otherwise, how could Bai Qian personally teach an outer sect disciple like Lu Yi so patiently? A day later, a somewhat crude array flag came out of the furnace. Bai Qian inspected it a little and nodded lightly. Not bad, but there are many areas that need improvement. Continue. With the first successful experience, it was easy to make other array flags. As time passed, array flags were forged one after another. According to Bai Qian's previous teachings, the most basic array flags were 36. With Lu Ye's current cultivation, as long as he could forge 36 array flags, it would be enough. For the time being, he wasn't in a hurry to forge more advanced array flags. It wouldn't be too late to consider it after his cultivation and array Dao attainments improved. In the beginning, Lu Yi could only forge 1 array flag a day on average. The main reason was that it was too difficult. It was easy to change the internal structure of the array flag with a single strike of the hammer, but it was difficult to change the structure into a spirit pattern. If there was a mistake, the array flag would have to be reforged. According to Bai Qian, true master refiners could often directly create a spirit pattern with a single strike of the hammer. In this way, whether it was the efficiency or the margin for error, it would greatly increase. As for cultivators like Lu Yi, who mainly cultivated fire in the 5 elements and also cultivated a fire attribute cultivation method, when their cultivation was high enough, they could directly use their spirit power to change the internal structure of the array flag. In this way, they didn't need to beat it. By the time Lu Yi finished refining the most basic set of array flags, half a month had already passed. As Bai Qian walked out of the weapon forging workshop, under the dazzling sunlight, Lu Yi couldn't help but feel as if a lifetime had passed. Go back and rest for today. This old man will take you to the 100 Formation Pagoda tomorrow. Bai Qian brought him back to his residence and left after instructing him. After Bai Qian left, Lu Yi directly lay on the bed, not wanting to move at all, and fell into a deep sleep. Refining array flags for half a month without much rest during this time was truly exhausting. When he woke up, he had already prepared a sumptuous meal. Lu Yi stuffed himself with food and felt his vitality recover. Bai Qian arrived as promised and wrapped Lu Yi with his spirit power before flying off in a certain direction. Not long after, the two landed in a valley where a several dozen meter tall stone pagoda stood. The base of the stone pagoda was about 100 meters wide and gave off a strong sense of vicissitudes. This was Lu Ye's purpose for coming to the Heaven Expanse sect, the 100 Formation Pagoda. However, his initial thoughts were too simple. He thought that he could enter the 100 Formation Pagoda after coming to the Heaven Expanse sect. In the end, just learning array Dao and forging array flags from Bai Qian took him a month and a half. However, it was worth it in the end. As the saying goes, sharpening a knife won't delay the work of cutting firewood. Just like how the Heaven Expanse sect withdrew all of their manpower from the weapon forging workshop in order to prevent the news of Lu Ye's survival from leaking out, today, the Heaven Expanse sect also withdrew everyone here and sealed off the valley where the 100 Formation Pagoda was located. Therefore, when Bai Qian brought Lu Yi here, there was no one here. The 100 Formation Pagoda wasn't complete. From the outside, it looked like the stone pagoda had been cut off from the middle. Only the lower half of the pagoda was left, while the upper half was missing. Zhao Li had told Lu Yi that the 100 Formation Pagoda was divided into 3 parts. One part was in the Heaven Expanse sect, one part was in the Cloud River battlefield, and no one knew where the last part was. At the bottom of the stone tower, there was a stone tablet. Spirit light flowed on the stone tablet, and occasionally, some messy patterns would appear. Lu Yi stared at it for a while but couldn't understand what these patterns were. It said that this is a list. Bai Qian explained, anyone who performs well in the 100 Formation Pagoda is qualified to leave their name on this list and be revered by future generations. However, because the pagoda itself is incomplete, this list can't be revealed. Perhaps only by making the 100 Formation Pagoda complete will this tablet be restored. He turned his head and looked at Lu Yi solemnly. I'm sure you've learned some information about the 100 Formation Pagoda. There are opportunities in the pagoda, but there are also dangers. When you enter the pagoda, remember to act according to your capabilities. During his days in the Heaven Expanse sect, he naturally learned about the 100 Formation Pagoda from various sources. He knew that Bai Qian wasn't exaggerating. The 100 Formation Pagoda's array path cultivation was greatly beneficial. It could be said that all the array cultivators in the 9 states Grand Heaven Alliance would think of ways to come to the Heaven Expanse sect to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda. The Heaven Expanse sect welcomed them and didn't keep it to themselves. They didn't even use it to gain any benefits. However, it was undeniable that the 100 Formation Pagoda brought the Heaven Expanse sect a lot of connections. This was an intangible benefit. The 100 Formation Pagoda was very dangerous. It wasn't just the array itself that was dangerous, but also the benefits obtained after passing each level's test. These benefits were also dangerous. This was because there were many array cultivators who died in the 100 Formation Pagoda. Among them, there was no lack of genius array cultivators from large sections. Chapter 316. Every cultivator who entered the 100 Formation Pagoda would be informed of the dangers within by the Heaven Expanse sect so that they wouldn't die young. But no matter how much the Heaven Expanse sect warned, accidents would still happen. Given the Jade Blood sect's protective nature, Bai Qian didn't want anything to happen to Lu Yi in the 100 Formation Pagoda. Standing in front of the stone pagoda, Lu Yi stepped in. Under Bai Qian's guidance, he stood on a formation in the center. Bai Qian placed spirit stones around the formation and looked up at Lu Yi. Seeing that he was ready, he activated the formation. His vision twisted and changed, similar to when he used the Tianji pillar to enter the spirit stream battlefield. When Lu Yi came back to his senses, he was already in an empty space. This space wasn't very big, only about the size of a room. Looking around, Lu Yi saw a protruding stone brick on the wall. He walked forward and pressed his hand on the brick. With a slight force, the brick immediately caved in. In a split second, the world's spirit energy surged and veined patterns quickly spread out in the room. These veined patterns didn't just appear on the ground, but also on the walls. Seeing that the formation had been revealed, Lu Yi understood that he had to break the formation himself. For so many years, the Heaven Expanse sect, as well as the formation cultivators of the 9 provinces, had constantly sent people to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda. The specific types of tests in the pagoda had long been figured out by cultivators. Generally, there were 3 types: setting up a formation, breaking a formation, and mending a formation. Setting up an array meant setting up a corresponding array according to the 100 Formation Pagoda's requirements. Breaking an array meant that the 100 Formation Pagoda would create an array and the cultivator would have to break it. Mending an array was a bit more complicated. The 100 Formation Pagoda might only create half an array, which could be mended completely. It could also create an array with a mistake, which required the cultivator to find the mistake and fix it. Every level had a time limit of 6 hours. Within this 6-hour time limit, the more the cultivator completed the test, the greater the benefits they would receive. The number of formations in the 100 Formation Pagoda wasn't limited to 100. This name came from the fact that it had 100 levels. Breaking formations was Lu Ye's forte. It was much simpler than setting up and mending a formation. Lu Yi first threw 2 spirit pills into his mouth. As he chewed, he activated the Insight Spirit Mark. With a flash of light in his eyes, Lu Yi saw the nodes of the formation. After all, this was only the first level, and the formations that appeared were the simplest ones. Lu Yi didn't know the exact use of these formations, but he didn't need to find out. Lu Yi didn't even bother to summon his own formation flag. Instead, he drew the mountain blade from his waist and stabbed at one of the nodes. As his spirit energy surged, the formation suddenly stagnated and collapsed. In less than 3 breaths of time, the formation was broken. New veined patterns rapidly formed, forming another array formation. Lu Yi observed for a moment, then stabbed out with his saber again. After breaking 3 formations in a row, no new formations appeared this time. A dot of light suddenly appeared out of thin air and floated in front of Lu Yi. Lu Yi raised his hand and touched the light, imprinting it on his forehead, and a message appeared in his mind. This time, the test was to set up a formation. The formation diagram of the formation had already appeared along with the message. Lu Yi put away his saber. After thinking for a moment, he took out 5 formation flags from his storage bag. Compared to breaking formations, setting up formations was undoubtedly more troublesome. In the past, when Lu Yi set up formations, he would directly activate his own spiritual energy, just like how he constructed spiritual runes. He would construct a formation in one go. This method was faster, but it also consumed a lot of energy. Moreover, the formations set up this way were not stable enough and could be easily broken. However, it was different with the help of array flags. The consumption would be much lower, the array would become more stable, and the margin for error would also be much higher. This was how most array cultivators set up arrays. After all, not every array cultivator had such strong control over their own spiritual power like him. As Lu Yi set up array flags one after another and placed them in all directions, the framework of the array was quickly constructed. Then he activated his spiritual energy and filled the array's internal structure. This was the advantage of setting up an array with the help of the array flags. Using the array flags to first build the framework of the array, then perfecting and supplementing the array, it was much simpler than directly using spiritual power to build the array. The progress was fast. After about half an hour, the formation was complete. Lu Yi finished constructing the last pattern and the formation began to operate. After 3 breaths, the formation was erased by an unknown force. Lu Yi put away his formation flags. Another light appeared. Soon, Lu Yi discovered a problem, and that was that he seemed to be targeted. That was because he didn't have many chances to break formations in the following tests. Only 1 or 2 times out of 10 were required to break formations. The rest were required to set up formations. As for fixing formations, there wouldn't be such a test in the first 10 floors. It would only happen after the 10th floor. He didn't know what the other cultivators had to go through, but he only had a 10 to 20% chance of breaking formations. This was obviously abnormal. This made him suspect that the 100 formation pagoda had its own thoughts. Did it think that he was breaking formations too fast, so it increased the difficulty? Even so, Lu Ye's speed was slowly increasing. After all, it was only the first floor. Even if he had to set up a formation, it wouldn't be too difficult. Many of the internal structures of spirit arrays were the same. Lu Yi had set them up many times and was familiar with them. The only problem he had to consider now was the consumption of his spirit force. He had now opened 179 apertures. He only needed one more to break through to the 9th order. This number was from half a month ago. In the past half a month, he had been following Bai Qian in building the formation flags. His spirit force consumption was huge, so he didn't have the chance to open the last aperture. However, there was no need to worry. As long as he passed the first floor's test, he would be able to break through to the 9th order. At that time, the 100 formation pagoda would gather enough world energy for him to cultivate and recover. Lu Yi was immersed in setting up and breaking formations. He completely forgot about the passage of time. Until a certain moment, when Lu Yi set up a spirit array according to the requirements of the 100 formation pagoda, the world energy in the room suddenly increased rapidly. In just a few breaths, the room became foggy, to the point where one couldn't even see their own fingers. The 6-hour time limit was up. The 100 formation pagoda's test wasn't difficult. No matter which floor one was on, as long as one could break an array, set up an array, or repair an array, they would pass the test. The more times one completed the test, the more generous the reward one would receive when the time limit was up. The world energy reward was just a bonus. No matter what, a cultivator needed to consume a lot of spirit force to complete the test. When the time limit was up, the 100 formation pagoda would create an environment suitable for the cultivator to recover, so that the cultivator could deal with the next floor's test. Lu Yi didn't count how many tests he had completed in the past 6 hours, but he roughly estimated that he had completed 40 to 50 tests. This was because the chances of him encountering spirit arrays were too high. If he wasn't targeted by the 100 formation pagoda, this number would have been much higher. Completing 40 to 50 tests on the first floor was an extremely terrifying result. If the stone tablet at the base of the pagoda was still functioning, then Lu Ye's name would definitely be on it. Moreover, he would be ranked very high. This led to the 100 formation pagoda's reward being extremely generous. The dense world energy that had already turned into mist was the best proof. Not only that, there was also a fist-sized ball of fluorescent light floating in front of Lu Yi. This ball of fluorescent light was the most important benefit of challenging the 100 formation pagoda. Lu Yi wasn't in a hurry to touch the ball of fluorescent light. He first checked the consumption of his spirit force. After 6 hours of non-stop breaking and setting up spirit arrays, even if he had been taking spirit pills to recover, his spirit force was almost completely depleted. With a slight thought, he began to construct spirit-gathering runes in his spiritual cavities. In just the time it took for an incense stick to burn, 179 spirit-gathering runes were formed. Under the absorption of the spirit-gathering runes, the world energy in the surroundings continuously flowed into his spiritual cavities, allowing his nearly depleted spirit force to rapidly recover. After finishing this, Lu Yi raised his hand to grab the ball of fluorescent light and pressed it against his forehead. The fluorescent light entered and disappeared. A huge amount of complicated information suddenly appeared in Lu Ye's mind. That feeling was very refreshing. If the information Lu Yi obtained from the spirit-gathering runes in the talent tree's leaves was like someone opening his head and stirring his brain with a red-hot soldering iron, then the current feeling was like someone holding a hammer and fiercely striking his head. Lu Ye's head tilted back and he almost fell to the ground. His head swelled and his temples throbbed violently. His eyes were wide open and bloodshot. This was caused by receiving too much information in an instant. This was the greatest danger of challenging the 100 formation pagoda. This was also the reason why Bai Qian had repeatedly warned Lu Yi to act according to his strength. The fluorescent light contained an extremely large amount of array Dao knowledge. It was injected into Lu Ye's mind in a way that didn't care if he could withstand it or not. If he didn't have a strong enough willpower and tenacious soul, this alone would cause him to faint on the spot. In the worst case, his mind would be damaged or even die. If it were any other 8th order spirit stream realm cultivator, they definitely wouldn't be able to withstand it. But Lu Yi had experienced the destruction of the talent tree time and time again, so he wasn't unfamiliar with this feeling. Of course, the most important thing was that his soul had been cleansed in the soul cleansing pond, so his soul was much more tenacious than cultivators of the same level. Another point was that he had entered the Mirage realm many times to kill enemies. Every time he died, in the Mirage realm, his soul would have some tempering effect. It wasn't obvious once or twice, but after a few times the strength of his soul would naturally increase. However, he himself wasn't clear about this situation. Therefore, the more tests one passed in the 100 Formation Pagoda, the better. Instead, one had to pass as many tests as possible within the limits of one's body. Once this limit was exceeded, the cultivator might not be able to withstand the benefits of the enlightenment, and it would inevitably lead to disastrous consequences. Many cultivators who challenged the 100 Formation Pagoda didn't die in the tests, but in the final benefits. How tragic was that? Chapter 317. Just as Lu Yi imprinted the ball of light on his forehead, the 100 Formation Pagoda in the valley suddenly buzzed and an invisible force swept out in all directions, enveloping the entire valley. The cultivator in charge of guarding the 100 Formation Pagoda immediately sensed it and quickly reported it. Soon, a group of Sky Expanse sect's higher-ups rushed over to investigate under the lead of Sect Master Yu Xiao. First Elder Bai Qian also returned. The news quickly spread and many Sky Expanse sect disciples knew about the 100 Formation Pagoda's strange movements and rushed over. However, without Yu Xiao's orders, they stopped outside the valley and watched from afar. The 100 Formation Pagoda resonated. This was not common, but it was not unheard of. Basically, it would happen once every few years and the Sky Expanse sect disciples were no strangers to it. There was only one reason for such a situation to occur. Someone was challenging the 100 Formation Pagoda and had achieved excellent results. The Sky Expanse sect had once speculated as to how good this result was. That was, one had to be qualified to be listed on the list. Unfortunately, the 100 Formation Pagoda itself was incomplete, and there was no way to display the list. Therefore, no one dared to confirm whether this was the case. However, from the fact that the pagoda resonated once every few years, there were not many people who could do it. All the formation cultivators in the Grand Heaven Alliances camped from all over the 9 states would challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda. Some had even challenged it more than once. Every year, there were at least 800 if not 1,000. This showed how difficult it was to resonate with the 100 Formation Pagoda. The reason why the pagoda resonated was because the benefits obtained by the challenger were so great that it triggered the heavenly secrets. The vibrations caused by the buzzing were extremely enlightening for formation cultivators. Therefore, every time the 100 Formation Pagoda resonated, the Sky Expanse sect disciples would rejoice. They could meditate and cultivate in the valley to deepen their understanding of Formation Dao and raise their attainments in Formation Dao. A treasure like the 100 Formation Pagoda was a holy land in the hearts of formation cultivators. The reason why the Sky Expanse sect did not cherish it was that they could use it to build their own connections. Secondly, if someone could resonate with the 100 Formation Pagoda, their disciples would also benefit from it. It was not bad for the disciples to follow the challenger and eat the soup. At this moment, many Sky Expanse sect disciples gathered outside the valley and discussed animatedly. Today, the valley where the 100 Formation Pagoda was located was suddenly sealed. No one knew why, but today the 100 Formation Pagoda resonated. This gave rise to many guesses. Could the challenger be Senior Sister Lingyun? A few days ago, I heard that Senior Sister Lingyun made a breakthrough in the Array Dao and is preparing to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda 3 times. Senior Lingyun is over there. Someone pointed in a direction and the person who spoke earlier immediately saw a beautiful female cultivator. It was none other than the woman called Lingyun. If it's not senior sister Lingwen, could it be senior brother Ji? Senior sister Lingyun is senior brother senior Lingyun is senior Lingyun's senior brother Lingyun. Who's the one who challenged the tower? In our sect, only these two are qualified to resonate with the 100 Formation Pagoda. It might not be someone from our sect. Today, the 100 Formation Pagoda was suddenly sealed off. Perhaps some important person from the outer sect came. To be treated so seriously by our sect, the person must have an extraordinary identity. It is very likely that he is from some first-grade sect. Nonsense. There are quite a few rank ones who have come here. None of them have sealed the 100 Formation Pagoda. Sect. The disciples discussed animatedly, but they couldn't figure out the reason. Yu Xiao and Bai Qian stood side by side in front of the 100 Formation Pagoda, looking at the first level. Didn't Elder Bai tell him to act according to his ability? Yu Xiao felt a headache coming on. Bai Qian's old face wrinkled like a bitter gourd, full of worry. Why didn't I say anything? Before he went in, I specifically warned him. Who knows what this brat is doing? He actually caused resonance on the first floor. It seems like he's going all out. Elder Bai, how many levels do you think he can pass this time? Yu Xiao asked again. It's hard to say. You also know the rules of the 100 Formation Pagoda. The better his results, the greater the improvement in his array Dao. If it's just the ability he displayed before, he would be able to pass a dozen levels. But if he gains enough benefits inside, he might be able to pass a few more levels. This is troublesome. Let's hope he can sense the danger of the 100 Formation Pagoda and not be so impulsive. He won't be blinded by the benefits in front of him. Otherwise, he won't be able to explain himself to Jade Blood Sect. If he could send a message, Bai Qian would definitely tell Lu Yi to be careful. However, the 100 Formation Pagoda was isolated from the outside world. It was impossible to send a message inside. A sect elder came over and bowed. Sect Master, Grand Elder, the disciples are waiting. Should we let them in? Yu Xiao looked back and saw his sect's disciples outside the valley. He pondered for a moment and said, let them in. The resonance only occurred once every few years. It was also a chance for his sect's disciples to improve their formation Dao. He couldn't let them go back disappointed. After a while, the Sky Expanse sect's disciples gathered and sat down to meditate. As the 100 Formation Pagoda trembled again and again, they sensed the mysteries within. Inside the 100 Formation Pagoda, Lu Yi was currently digesting the massive amount of information that had entered his mind. Because this was only the first level, although he had gained a lot of benefits, the information that he had gained was basically the most basic knowledge of formations. Perhaps to other formation cultivators, these benefits weren't too precious. That was because every formation cultivator would have a good teacher to teach them and build a good foundation. However, Lu Yi was different. He had learned the Tao of spirit tattoos from Madame Yun. Even though the Tao of formations was a branch of spirit tattoos and had many similarities, there were also differences. He had only begun to study the Tao of formations after leaving the Jade Blood Sect. He was considered a self-taught genius. Therefore, his foundation in formation Dao wasn't very solid. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was building a castle in the sky. He had his own advantages in formation Dao, such as the ability to see through spirit runes. But he also had many shortcomings. The rewards he received from the first level were exactly what he needed. The information surged in his mind and Lu Yi quickly digested it. He verified what he had learned and filled in the gaps. Gradually, he strengthened his formation Dao foundation. Although his head was swollen, his heart was filled with joy. Even if there were no more benefits in the 100 Formation Pagoda, this trip alone was worth it. The time one could stay on each level of the 100 Formation Pagoda was limited. If one didn't enter the next level within a certain time limit, they would be expelled. When a cultivator challenged the 100 Formation Pagoda, not only did they have to digest the various benefits bestowed by the pagoda to improve their formation Dao attainments, they also had to think of ways to recover their spirit energy. Therefore, how to use the time wisely within the time limit was a very particular problem. Lu Yi had his own advantages in challenging the 100 Formation Pagoda because he didn't need extra time to recover his spirit energy. Under the construction of the spirit runes, the almost mist-like spirit energy in the room continuously poured into his spirit cavities. He only had to digest the benefits to his heart's content. As time passed, the feeling of fullness in Lu Ye's mind gradually disappeared. That was a sign that he had digested the benefits bestowed by the 100 Formation Pagoda. After an unknown period of time, Lu Yi opened his eyes with a pensive expression. The benefits he received this time weren't too profound. They were all simple and easy to understand Formation Dao foundations. Therefore, it wasn't difficult to digest them. It was just that he received a lot of information. Just from this, Lu Yi felt that his Formation Dao standard had increased by half a level. The 100 Formation Pagoda was indeed worthy of its reputation. His mind felt a little tired, but it wasn't a big problem. Lu Yi raised his eyes and looked around. The mist-like spirit energy in the room had not changed in the slightest compared to before. It was as if the spirit energy here was inexhaustible. However, this was also due to his excellent performance in the first layer. If he hadn't completed so many tests, the spirit energy here wouldn't be so rich. The nearly dried-up spirit energy in his body had been replenished. There was still time, so he wasn't in a hurry to break through to the next layer. It would be a waste if he didn't take advantage of such a good cultivation environment. Lu Yi was one spirit aperture away from breaking through to the 9th order. He immediately urged his spirit energy to break through the barrier of his spirit aperture. A moment later, the barrier of his spirit aperture broke open and his spirit energy flowed into the new spirit aperture. Lu Yi urged his spirit energy to connect the spirit apertures he had opened after breaking through to the 8th order, forming a new small cycle in his body. 9th order. In the past, it would take him no more than 2 months to break through to the 9th order, but from the 8th order to the 9th order, it took him almost 4 months. The main reason was that he had spent too much time and energy on the Spirit Array Dao recently, which caused his speed of opening his apertures to slow down. However, compared to what he had to do in the future, it was worth it. Thinking back to the battle of wits and courage with Manager Yang in Evil Moon Valley's mine, Yang Kai had embarked on the path of cultivation. In the blink of an eye, it had been almost a year and a half. Reaching the 9th order in less than a year and a half was a very fast speed. In the entire 9 provinces, more than 90% of cultivators had achieved this. Only those genius disciples from first-grade sects might be able to achieve such a cultivation speed. There was still time, so Lu Yi continued to cultivate. The newly opened spirit aperture only took half an hour to fill up. The main reason was that the cultivation environment here was too good. Compared to the Blue Blood Sect's station, the world energy here was many times richer. If the Blue Blood Sect's encampment had such a cultivation environment, then the cultivation of the disciples would definitely soar. However, that was obviously impossible. In the Spirit Stream battlefield, there was no encampment with such rich heaven and earth spirit chi, not even the encampments of the sects in the core region. Lu Yi once again urged his spirit energy to break through the barrier of his next spirit aperture. After buying the great sun-colored glass secret art from the Tianji treasure house, Lu Yi had spent some time on it and knew the location of the subsequent spirit apertures. As long as he had enough spirit energy in his body, it wouldn't be difficult to open them. However, if he wanted to cultivate this heaven-grade secret art, he would have to open 240 spirit apertures first. This was the same principle as when he cultivated the Golden Cicada Freedom Art to the Red Lotus Soaring Heaven Secret Art. Chapter 318. The Golden Cicada Carefree Art could only allow a cultivator to reach the 3rd Order Spirit Stream realm. After that, Lu Yi would have to follow the guidance of the Red Lotus Soaring to the Heaven's Secret Art to open the subsequent spirit apertures. The Great Sun-Colored Glass Secret Art was only used to guide the location of the subsequent spirit apertures. A moment later, a new spirit aperture opened. Lu Yi wanted to continue cultivating, but the surrounding environment suddenly started to distort. He immediately stopped, knowing that his time limit on the first floor had come to an end. His vision changed and he appeared in another room. This room didn't have the dense world energy, so it was obviously the second floor of the 100 Formation Pagoda. Compared to the first floor, this room was undoubtedly bigger. The spirit array quickly formed. The test had arrived. He wanted to break the spirit array. Lu Yi was slightly surprised. After suffering a loss on the first floor, he pondered for a moment. He didn't use the profound insight spirit tattoo to find the flaws in the spirit array. Instead, he took out the array flags from his storage bag and threw them in all directions, borrowing the power of the array flags to find the flaws in the spirit array. The profound insight spirit tattoo was a good thing. It did provide Lu Yi with a lot of convenience in breaking spirit arrays, but it wasn't of much help in improving his array Dao. It was like solving a problem. Normally, the steps to solve a problem were based on the clues given by the person who came up with the problem. Step by step, the answer would be calculated slowly. With the help of the profound insight spirit tattoo, Lu Yi could directly see the answer, completely skipping the intermediate steps. In the future, there might be a situation where the profound insight spirit tattoo couldn't be used, so breaking the spirit array honestly wasn't without benefits. The second floor's spirit array was slightly more difficult than the first floor's. Lu Yi quickly found the flaws in the spirit array with the help of the array flags. Only then did he use the profound insight spirit tattoo to verify the results. After confirming that there were no mistakes, he started to break the spirit array. Slowly, he found that this was the correct way to break through the 100 Formation Pagoda. Because in the following tests, the chances of setting up and breaking spirit arrays were basically half, unlike his encounter on the first floor. Moreover, with the large amount of benefits he obtained from the first floor, it made up for his shortcomings in array Dao to a large extent, allowing his level of array Dao to improve. As a result, even if the second floor's spirit array was slightly more difficult than the first floor, the time he needed to set up the spirit array didn't change. In addition, the number of times he broke array to break the array increased. In the valley where the 100 Formation Pagoda was, many disciples of the Sky Expanse sect were waiting. 4 hours ago, the 100 Formation Pagoda's resonance had stopped. This resonance had a time limit and was closely related to the challenger. Once the challenger digested all the benefits, the resonance would disappear. However, to be able to cause resonance on the first floor, it undoubtedly meant that the person challenging the tower was extraordinary. Therefore, the disciples of the Sky Expanse sect were looking forward to him obtaining a good result on the second floor. If that happened, they would also be able to obtain some benefits. The only thing that the Sky Expanse sect's disciples couldn't figure out was the identity of the challenger. Zhao Li, who was still recuperating in by Qian's residence, understood. He naturally knew that Lu Yi wanted to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda, but he didn't expect that it would resonate with the 100 Formation Pagoda. He also cultivated array Dao, but because he had to play dead, it was inconvenient for him to show his face. He couldn't go to the valley where the 100 Formation Pagoda was to cultivate. This made him feel very depressed. If it were not for the fact that Giant Armor and Yi were here to accompany him, he could not help but feel sad as if he had been abandoned by his sect. Buzz, the humming sound of the huge 100 Formation Pagoda could be heard as an invisible force swept out in all directions, rapidly covering the entire valley. It's coming, it's coming! A Sky Expanse sect's disciple who had been waiting for a long time laughed loudly. He hurriedly sat upright and still, feeling the inspiration that the power of resonance had for him. If he could cause resonance on the first floor, then there would definitely be no problem on the second floor. There was a high probability that he could do the same on the third floor. As for the fourth floor, it was hard to say. The highest record on the Sky Expanse sect's side was for someone to cause resonance 9 times in a row. In other words, the cultivators of the Sky Expanse sect obtained benefits 9 times in a row. This benefit was not the kind of practical benefit that came from the 100 Formation Pagoda, but more of a kind of inspiration. Perhaps this kind of inspiration would allow array cultivators to have a flash of inspiration and understand some things that they didn't understand before. Perhaps most people would gain nothing, but there were indeed people who improved their array Dao attainments because of this. Compared to the disciples' joy, Yu Xiao and Bai Qian were undoubtedly even more worried. They had also challenged the 100 Formation Pagoda before and knew how attractive the benefits bestowed by the 100 Formation Pagoda were to array cultivators. It was fine that Lu Yi could cause resonance on the first floor, but it was his first time entering the 100 Formation Pagoda. It could be said that he was young and impetuous and didn't want to hold back. But since he could feel the hidden danger of the benefits, he should restrain himself on the second floor. The two of them were only worried about one thing. Lu Yi had been blinded by the benefits bestowed by the 100 Formation Pagoda. If that was the case, something would definitely happen. It wasn't as if this had never happened before. While they were deeply worried, on the second floor of the 100 Formation Pagoda, Lu Ye's entire body was trembling violently. His eyes were bloodshot and his head was swollen with pain. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth in the room had also turned into mist. With his previous experience, he hurriedly digested what he had gained this time. Strictly speaking, the benefits bestowed by the 100 Formation Pagoda and the spirit runes he obtained from the talent tree were both enlightening. As for which experience was worse, it could only be said that both were terrible. But there was a benefit to the experience at the 100 Formation Pagoda. As long as he could digest the additional information in his mind, the terrible feeling would slowly disappear. With his previous experience, Lu Yi naturally immersed himself in his thoughts. After a few hours, Lu Yi heaved a sigh of relief. He had digested all the benefits he had gained, and his Array Dao foundation had become much more solid. Just like last time, Lu Yi hurriedly made use of the favorable environment to cultivate and break through the spirit aperture barrier. As the days passed, the disciples of the Heaven Expanse sect gradually boiled over. They didn't know which ferocious person had entered the 100 Formation Pagoda, but in a short 5 days he had reached the 10th floor. Furthermore, every floor had resonated with the pagoda. On average, it was twice a day, once during the day and once at night. Such a thing had never happened in the Heaven Expanse sect for so many years. In the past, even if someone could trigger such a resonance, it would at most be 4 or 5 times in a row. That was because once the resonance was triggered, the benefits bestowed by the 100 Formation Pagoda would be extremely huge. It would become difficult for the challenger to digest and absorb the benefits. If it happened too many times, the cultivator simply wouldn't be able to bear it. What kind of concept was it to trigger the resonance of 10 floors in a row? The disciples couldn't help but suspect that some Array Dao Grandmaster had secretly come to challenge the pagoda. Otherwise, how could there be such shocking results? Some courageous disciples went to ask their sect master and great elder, but not only did they not get an answer, they were also reprimanded by the sect master and great elder. It was said that the sect master and grand elder were currently in a very bad mood. Their faces were filled with anxiety and worry. It would be strange if they were in a good mood. They originally thought that Lu Yi would be aware of the dangers of the 100 Formation Pagoda after passing the first floor and be more vigilant. Who would have thought that things weren't as they thought? How could a spirit stream realm cultivator withstand the resonance of 10 floors in a row? Elder Bai, that brat has soul cleansing water and should have used it before. His soul is much tougher than an ordinary spirit stream realm cultivator. Grand Elder, you don't have to be too worried. I don't think he's a fool. Since he chose to do this, he should have his own plans. Yu Xiao spoke. Rather than saying that he was comforting Bai Qian, it was better to say that he was comforting himself. You don't know that brat's courage and boldness. Even if his soul is tougher than an ordinary spirit stream realm cultivator's, there is still a limit. If he exceeds this limit, he won't be able to bear it. I only hope that he can leave the 100 Formation Pagoda before he reaches his limit. Only then will there be no worries. Who was that brat? He was a ruthless person who dared to use the Insight Spirit rune on his eyes. Bai Qian had cultivated for so many years, but he had never heard of any spirit rune master who dared to do so. Previously, he thought that it was a good thing that this brat dared to do what he wanted and was full of boldness. But now, it seemed that it was a bullshit good thing. His heart had been beating fast these past few days, afraid that Lu Yi would suddenly die in the 100 Formation Pagoda. He had already sent a message to Zhao Li, telling him to keep an eye on Lu Ye's brand. If Lu Ye's brand dissipated, he was to report back immediately. While Yu Xiao and Bai Qian were worried, Lu Yi was busy in the 100 Formation Pagoda. Lu Ye's foundation in the art of formations might not be perfect, but in the entire 9 provinces, there were few who could compare to him. The 100 Formation Pagoda was like an excellent teacher. After he passed the trials, it gave him all sorts of rewards. After digesting these rewards, Lu Ye's level of the Array Dao improved greatly. Going through level after level from easy to difficult, from simple to complex, Lu Ye's understanding of the Array Dao had reached an extremely thorough level. No wonder the Array Dao cultivators of the 9 provinces liked to challenge the 100 Formation Pagoda. It was much more effective than studying Array Dao with a few books. Every level of the 100 Formation Pagoda was more difficult than the previous, but as he absorbed the benefits, his Array Dao level improved steadily. Therefore, even though the levels increased, the frequency of him passing the tests did not decrease by much. Taking the 10th floor as an example, he had passed a total of 40 trials in 6 hours, which was why he had received such a generous reward. The difficulty increased significantly at the 11th level. Without the foundation laid by the previous 10 levels, Lu Yi would definitely be thwarted on this level. Even if he could pass the test, he would not gain much. But with his previous gains, things were different. Taking out suitable formation flags, Lu Yi repeated the actions of breaking and setting up formations. Moreover, after the 11th level, there was another type of test, which was to repair the formation. The 100 Formation Pagoda would form a half-finished formation, which Lu Yi would repair. Alternatively, it would form a faulty formation, which he would then find and modify to make the formation work again. The first time he encountered it, Lu Yi was indeed delayed for a while. But after he had a clear idea, he suddenly became enlightened. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.